Thank you for staying. Let's cut into the news now. And in our first story, former Auditor General Daniel Yao Domelevo is demanding immediate sanctions against the government officials found culpable in that latest Auditor General's report. The report found many cases where the total of 21.8 billion cedis mobilized to mitigate the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic in Ghana was simply misused. In one case, the Auditor General flags what he calls a possible case of financial loss totaling $81 million worth of vaccines paid for but never received. Mr. Domelevo has been speaking with Blessed Soga on Pulse.
As to why there is no disallowance or surcharges recently, I think the best person to answer that should be the Auditor General. Remember, the Constitution under Article 1A7 Clause 7B provides that the Auditor General, in the performance of his function, can disallow any item, in fact, he used the word may, disallow any item of expenditure which is contrary to law and surcharge the people responsible. And that is what I sought to do, because I thought if there are no consequences for the infractions, the culture of impunity will continue. So that is what I sought to do. And I know for sure that the current Auditor General, Mr. Johnson Asiedu Ekwamwa, is more than capable of doing the same. Maybe he may have some challenges which I am not aware of, but I think that by the time I left office, the mechanisms and the institutional arrangements were in place, which he can use to do same.
Yeah, but you want him to go ahead and surcharge, do you?
Of course, yes. In fact, I was waiting to hear that following this report, these people who are misusing money have been surcharged. Because if we don't do that, we can continuously audit. He can send his people 1,001 times on the field, but we will continue getting these infractions. And even people get emboldened because they think that nothing is going to happen as a result of this audit. So it is my wish and my expectation that those that is saying refund should go ahead, serve them with notice of intention to disallow and surcharge them. If they are not happy, they should go to court. It doesn't matter whether they go to court or they don't go to court. It is quite deterrent. And if they go to court, well, they may win, they may not win. The Auditor General may lose some of the cases, may win some of the cases, but that is the name of the game.
Well, now, the minority in Parliament is raising fresh concerns about government's gold for oil deal. The deal, being spearheaded by Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, has been touted as the deal which will lower the cost of fuel at the pumps and stabilize the Ghana cedi. Already, the first consignment under the deal has arrived in the country, but the minority in Parliament says the deal has been shrouded in secrecy and could, just like the Sino-Hydro barter deal, worsen Ghana's debt to GDP ratio. Minority spokesperson on Mines and Energy, John Jinapo, says their side wants the deal suspended for further consultation.
We are calling on government to halt this so-called gold for oil barter and consult further. Already, the Chamber of Mines has complained. Indeed, if you look at the structure, today government owes GOIL over 300 million cedis. Government has not been able to pay that amount. Government is not the most efficient partner when it comes to trading. BOST has consistently made losses. PMMC has only 2 offices as we speak, in Accra and in Kumasi. And yet PMMC claims that it wants to buy gold from all the 16 regions. As of 1st January, PMMC decided to ban the export of gold by these licensed gold exporters. Meanwhile, PMMC has not been able to establish the appropriate letters of credit for the agencies. So rather than taking this unorthodox, untested method, I would call on government to engage the small-scale dealers, the bullion dealers, and the licensed gold exporters. So that if it means that you have to increase the percentage of forex that they have to repatriate and reduce the number of days from 30 to say 2 weeks, it makes sense because this will create unemployment. It would encourage smuggling. I checked from the Bank of Ghana website, and they have artificially pegged the dollar to around 10 to 11. Meanwhile, these gold exporters tell me that when they sell the gold, the rate at which they sell is at the forex rate, which is over 13. Bank of Ghana should concentrate on its core business and desist from engaging in trading of gold. That is not the job of the central bank. People have licenses to trade in gold. If you need the forex, come up with measures to ensure that the forex is brought back to Ghana. Then you can give these exporters the CD equivalent. It deals with that.
Well, they also say the PMMC, the state agency which has been mandated by government to purchase the gold, which will be used for the barter, does not have the capacity and has been alleging the central bank may be burning through Ghana's gold reserves to sponsor the project. John Janapo says the Bank of Ghana must stay off such business and focus on its core mandate.
I have had the cause to look at the certificate. And clearly, when you look at the details, you will then come to the conclusion that government is not being honest. My checks indicate that PMMC, the agency tasked to purchase this gold, which will be used as a barter, has not lived up to expectation. If you look at the structure, the small-scale mining companies are supposed to supply about 80% of the gold requirement, and then the remaining 20% will come from the large-scale agencies. PMMC hasn't been able to procure an ounce of gold, as I speak to you, from the small-scale miners, and you can check with PMMC. So the first question is, which gold did they use as barter for this oil? It is important. And let me caution the Bank of Ghana that any attempt to deplete our gold reserves for this so-called oil barter deal would be resisted by the minority. It will be improper and it will be illegal. The gold is part of our reserves, and they cannot unilaterally take the golds meant for our reserves to buy this oil. Clearly, this is an attempt to create a further burden for the ordinary taxpayer. We recall that this same vice president told us he was doing a bauxite barter with Sinohydro. As we speak, the IMF has insisted, and government has agreed, that indeed that so-called barter was nothing but a loan agreement. And that has been captured as part of our national accounting system. And it's a debt as we speak. And so when this same Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, come telling you that he's now going to do gold, having failed to deliver on his barter promise with bauxite, I can't say that Kwatrikwas Obama Ontuma Bisanidin clearly fits in.
Now, in our next story, the traditional council of Upper Dix Cove in the Ahanta West municipality of the Western region is outraged about illegal mining activities in their area. The leaders say the act has led to the destruction of forest reserves and farmland. The traditional leaders have succeeded in the arrest of a Galamsey kingpin after battling to arrest him for close to a year. Correspondent Inatalia Kwanza has visited the destroyed land and gives us this report.
The Upper Dix Cove Traditional Council on Saturday, 21st January 2023, arrested a Galamsey kingpin whose name has only been given as Richard at Ahanta Banso, the Ahanta West municipality of the Western region, during his nefarious activities on a 5-acre land. The illegal miners have destroyed large tracts of forest reserves, rubber plantation, and farms in the process, all in their quest to explore for gold. Several open pits with water could be seen on the land. Some of their machines used for the illegal activities were also seen on the site. Auditor of Ahanta Banso, Nana Ejay II, indicated that illegal miners have been operating on his land since last year, and efforts to stop them never materialized until the community decided to deal with the issue on their own.
More than 5 acres. omo ase no omo aye galamsey ase no sase eda ha am so bi mu ohwe sore wo so bi mu rubber fu ewo ho sase da ha omo tumi ase na besi ma na ye tumi tu ho na mo bebre ema police soldier for mpanifo edimu adanse ye ya abo mo amane ye se galamsey adwuma ekoso ma sase so na evi ko mo tumi kire me se omo tumi kire me ba bia adwuma no wo but me fra omo a eno ne so be me time say no chena ye beba afi the last show kura omo kire me se omo nika omo de beba operation nti ese me am ko peka oba be fa omo soja nti mi hunu se ne omo ne me ka no ye dada because last year ton wana me 2 1 amon edi mu nkomo na no ku ada ya me sa ne omo edi hu nkomo ba fi de ba bia omo ni mi wie ni se fi de car ni ho omo ni ma car lo be fa machine no ti afi de me from bi no mo fa nti ene mi ndai na me se no asase ne ya media anya obi dia me na media konwa no ese metumi ni masafofo ne me mnante etu anamo ba asase we so na metumi be hu ni pode asase pass me ba mbeto abrante e friend Richard me beto no me bisa no say one of the assassin ma wontumi ni me anka so wontumi anyimi ano anka asem papa bia ya we de ne ko ya agwan kwata police station system ka say o police phone sem police commander e friend Valentine apasu sisi ya mikase yi na etu anamo aba ba bia o mu di excavator ne free site we ko si ye o mu hina wo ho a ye hwe ne yetumi di excavator na akọ ebe police station ona ede ne else ho ne yetumi ato aso nti na o mu bisa me de case na mpese eduru ba bia ya asem di bia ye court cause me menyi galamsey entum na obrempon ma de chia me so me no mpese aduma no e wona asase so na me odi kuro no ma be galamsey di abi.
The suspect has since been handed over to the police at Agunankwanta pending investigation. The traditional leaders, led by the Asafu group on Monday, converged at the Agunankwanta police station demanding immediate prosecution of the said Galamsey kingpin, who is already in the custody of the police. Speaking to the media, the traditional leaders are calling for the arrest and prosecution of whoever gave permit to the illegal miners to operate as well as confiscate all earthen-moving machines and other equipment used in their illegal activities.
Well, you feel very disturbed. You feel very disturbed on this land because the land can be used for other different purposes, but not for this purpose. As excavator is digging out this land for useless things. For against on some people, very few people to get access to this and make use of it. So you're very sorry this thing is happening on our land.
I think here takes the case to court. This case should go to court and should be example for and hunter those around over here to stop that galamsey. That's what we can do.
They also want the illegal miners to reclaim and restore the destroyed farmlands and water bodies and also pay adequate compensation to the affected farmers in the area they operated. For JoyNews, in Athalia, Kwanza, Western Region.
On to education now, and students of the Krobia Sante Technical and Vocational Institute in the Ashanti region will be surcharged for damage caused property before they return to school. 6 vehicles and other school property, including new building projects, were vandalized by rampaging students protesting poor examination performance. Ashanti Regional Minister Simon Osei-Mensah, before the announcement of a 5-member investigative committee, said government couldn't take up the cost of the damaged property. Nana Yaljima joined the minister and members of the District Security Council to tour the school.
40 students arrested for the rampage are still in police custody as invitation is extended to the student leadership. All students have given their caution statements to the police. Seche East District Director of Education, William Brakon Ejapon, says preliminary investigations have established 3 reasons for the rioting.
What we are hearing are speculations, okay? One of it is that the poor result for that of the exam that they write. They don't write, mind you, this is a pure technical school, so they don't write WASI. Yes, so that's what they are claiming. That's what we have heard, that is speculation. But the school has come out with a policy that when it comes to prepping, we don't do this together, okay? It's a mixed school. So the boys have the separate place that they have their prep. The girls have the separate place that they have their preps. Okay? But it seems as if this has not gone down where with the students, they want to have it together. Why do you want to have it together? One also has to do with the fact that They said where they do the ironing, they don't have enough sockets over there. But I know these students, we are not supposed to go to school with mobile phones. So most of them are with these mobile phones.
The rampage started at dawn on Sunday. The students started their distraction by cutting the main power source of the school. The principal's bungalow was the prime target, but an attempt for forceful entry was unsuccessful. A government-owned Isuzu pickup truck parked at the premises was destroyed. They proceeded to the main administrative block to vandalize the school's Mahindra pickup truck, a Nissan patrol vehicle, and the school's bus. The students also turned over a Mercedes-Benz saloon vehicle owned by a teacher. They marched to the apartment of the senior house mistress, hurled stones and other missiles at the building, and destroyed a Toyota Vitz car parked in front of the apartment. They forced open the first gate of the apartment and made away with cooked food. The school's food store was ransacked, while installations in newly constructed buildings were destroyed. The rampaging students, after the distraction caused on different parts of the campus, marched to the teachers' premises, that's the teachers' quarters, and forced open the main door. It was at this point that the police intervened and prevented them from entering the various rooms of teachers. Ashanti Regional Minister Simon Osei-Mensah expressed shock at the distraction. He wants the students to pay for the damage.
You see, the Isuzu pickup was purchased in 2020 in the midst of the COVID. You understand it? When all of us were suffering, and then the government squeeze out funds to buy pickups for all institutions, and then you come to destroy it. They have to pay for them. Whatever they've destroyed, they have to pay for. Me, I believe in being fair. Being fair doesn't mean what people talk about, like put human face. All of us here, whose face is animal face?
The Regional Security Council and the Ministry of Education have resolved to establish a 5-member investigative committee. The regional minister says cause and cost of the vandalism will be established by the committee.
For now, I cannot tell you the members of the committee because we don't have the names yet. Some of the members will come from the Ministry of Education. Some of the members will come from the Regional Coordinating Council. But definitely, I prefer the chairman of the committee to be somebody who belongs to the learned profession. That is an astute justice of the Superior Court or any lawyer of high repute who understands the legalities involved in such situations. And then we need somebody who is also a peacemaker. And then we need somebody who can delve into investigation.
Meanwhile, the regional minister says all the arrests made will be duly investigated and prosecuted.
Their fate will be determined by investigations being conducted by the police. We'll screen them. Those who will be found culpable, the law will deal with them. Those maybe whose involvement is insignificant or maybe they were not involved, those people definitely, they can still keep them.
It remains unclear when the school will be reopened. For JoyNews, Nanaya Ojima, Kumasi.
Well, on that note, we cap off the news. Up next, we serve you the news review in the next few minutes. Stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us. In the next 30 or so minutes, we'll be discoursing on what the papers have put together for us this morning. Joining me shortly is President of the Ghana Journalists Association, Afeo Moni. He will be sharing his thoughts on some of the papers we have put together. But quite a number of startling revelations from the Auditor General's report. And he says, we recommend that the Chief Director of the Ministry of Health should renegotiate with UNICEF or AVAT to recover the outstanding amount. What does that have to do with? We know that some 5,109,600 doses of vaccines valued at $38,322 million were supplied to the National Cold Room, leaving a difference of about 81 plus million with UNICEF or AVAT. That's according to that revelation by the Auditor General. So Ghana has paid for $81.8 million worth of COVID-19 vaccines that have not, according to the Auditor General, been delivered. Of course, we've heard from the Health Ministry, talking about the situation and saying that we did not even have the capacity to take all of them at a go because we couldn't, keep them, so to speak, that we couldn't, they have to be refrigerated. We couldn't preserve them. That's the word I was looking for. And for that reason, we've not taken stock of all of them. Again, mention has been made that we've got some of these vaccines from other entities, partners here and there. And so that has stood in the gap for what quantities we would have wanted to come in. But after all this while, and especially as there has been a lot of contention about COVID-19 spending and how much exactly we have spent, and for all of this to have been kept, this adds to the opacity. It's like a brick wall. You can't see behind it. And I've always said, if you want to be transparent, you will be transparent. And if you want to be opaque, you will be opaque. But if you are opaque, it's like the Bible says, nothing can be hidden in darkness forever. There will be light that will expose it. I'm only saying this because guess what? So if this hadn't been, as some have said, a requirement, so to speak, by the IMF to get into some of these details so we know the nitty-gritty of what exactly happened, would we know of this information? And the question is, why shouldn't we know about it? If you live above the board, if you just let people know, oh, Ghana 4, this is what we're doing, and media, this is what is happening, this is how much we've allocated to this, but we've not taken stock of the vaccines yet because of these dynamics. No one would be questioning you now. But because we always like to skirt around issues, circumvent the truth, we always come to this point. And we seem never to learn. Never. Again, the Auditor General notes that the Ministry of Health, on behalf of the government of Ghana, paid an amount of $120 million to UNICEF or AVAT for the supply of these vaccines. Well, the rest is up to you to determine whether you feel satisfied with the use of our COVID-19 funds. Now that we know how that expenditure went, now that we know, in fact, there is some conflict between the figures that were given by the Ministry of Finance and what the Auditor General has audited. So there are about 3 other areas that have not been audited yet by the Auditor General. At least they do not form a part of the audited units, which would also result in other sums of money that we do not know how they were used. This entire COVID-19 bit, if you do the analysis, you would realize that we've raked in just about the same sum of money we're going to the IMF for. And we also know just about a quarter of the funds we received from donor partners, from bilateral partners, from the World Bank, the IMF, were pumped into actual direct COVID-19 work. Some of it went into LEAP, not bad. Some of it went into free SHS, not bad. But the question is, why not let the people know? And now, accountability has to come like pulling hair out of the nostrils. I'm just harping on this a bit this morning because honestly, having lived in different parts of the world, having been in Ghana, sometimes the way we do things makes, I'll leave it there. It just boggles my mind. But anyway, that said, let's get into other issues. We'll start with the Daily Graphic newspaper this morning. 96-year-old land dispute resolved. Case traveled from 1927 to 2023. You wouldn't believe. That's how long this case traveled. Just about what? 96 years. Well, I'll bring you some details of that story. We also have in the Daily Graphic this morning Government reaches revised agreement with banks. That's on page 21. There's also new utility tariffs nightmare for businesses. That's according to the Association of Ghana Industries. And that story is on page 13. We then look at PAC sittings. State pays $6.5 million, 6.5 million Ghana cedis cost over delayed project. And lackadaisical attitude risks 2030 rabies elimination target. Veterinary director expresses worry. All of those stories in the Daily Graphic News paper. Let's see whether we can get some scoop on that shortly. So the Supreme Court has resolved a 96-year-old stool land dispute between two towns in the Ashanti region, Abono and Ideduako, by ruling in favor of the chief of Abono, Nana Otuo Entwi Buesiako. The dispute, which started in 1927, was first adjudicated by the Native Tribunal of Prempeh I. That's how far back it goes. Then Asantehene, who was ousted and exiled by the British in 1896 and later returned as Kumasihene in 1924. In a unanimous decision on Wednesday, January 18 this year, a 5-member panel of the Supreme Court held that the disputed 938 acres of land belonged to the Abono community. Consequently, the court gave possession of the land to Nana Entwi Buesiako and slapped the chief of Ideduako and defendants, Nana J. Penin, with a cost of 30,000 Ghana cedis and 40,000 Ghana cedis in damages for trespassing on the land. Quote, the plaintiff or appellant chief of Abono is granted declaration of title to and the recovery of possession of all that piece of parcel of the disputed land and called Abono and bounded on one side by Kuntunase, Ideduako, and Nyamieni, and identified as 938 acres of land specifically delineated on the survey map the court held. And so in 2007, just to give some historical antecedents to what happened, Nana Entwi Buesiako dragged Nana J. Penin to the Kumasi High Court to recover possession of the said land. The High Court upheld the case of the chief of Abono. Dissatisfied, the chief of Ideduako appealed to the Court of Appeal, where he lost. And that is how this matter ended at the doorstep of the Apex Court, the Supreme Court, which ordered the High Court to hear the dispute afresh and determine it by ordering a survey of the disputed area, taking into consideration the demarcation done by the Native Tribunal in 1927. But now it's finally been resolved by the Supreme Court, and I guess we can call it done and dusted. Let's go to page 13, where we can talk about utility tariffs and the Association of Ghana Industries. Industries are convinced that the new increment in utility tariffs recently by the PURC, the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, will be counterproductive to their operations. They say at a time when an unstable environment coupled with uncertainty has weakened demand and continuously threatens the survival of industries, the implementation of the utility tariff increments for water and electricity would be a nightmare for business. They have therefore called on the PURC to expedite action towards the full reversal of the tariff structure in support of the government's industrial transformation agenda. The CEO of the Association of Ghana Industries, Seth Chum Akwabwa, in a statement issued yesterday, stated that the association and its members had taken note with serious concern the level of increments in the recent utility tariff review as released on January 16 this year by the PURC. Quoting him, he says, "We acknowledge this review is in line with a quarterly automatic adjustment as required of the regulator. We do appreciate the changes in the key determinants for tariff fixing since the last review in August 2022. However, the AGI stated that the level of utility tariff increments for water and electricity, as captured in the PURC's release, were too high for industry to bear, particularly at this time." And so that is the latest there as far as the AGI is concerned, and its moves to call for, or basically to see to a reversal of the latest utility tariffs. Let's get into some other stories as well. PAC sitting, that also on page 13. State pays 6.5 million Ghana cedi cost over delayed project. And the delay in the execution of a 1.4 million Ghana cedi project has resulted in the state paying an extra 6.5 million Ghana cedis for it. After awarding the contract to put up Edu Lodge in 2007 and paying 90% of the contract sum, the contractor abandoned site, citing ill health. This caused the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration to reevaluate the contract and award it for 7.9 million Ghana cedis in 2019. This came up when the ministry appeared before the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament last Friday. This was at its sitting for the committee to consider the report of the Auditor General on the public accounts of ministries, departments, and agencies. The PAC chair, Dr. James Kluchaveji, therefore charged officials of the Foreign Ministry to provide concrete reasons the project was abandoned. And these are some of the cycles that we see time and again, and contracts over time not, completed, added cost, all to the taxpayer, and sometimes there's even nothing to show. We've been told in some instances when it comes to COVID-19 and the rest, payments were made in some sectors where there's absolutely nothing to show, yet money exchanged hands. So what exactly happened? Let's welcome Afeol Money, former president of the Ghana Journalists Association. Mr. Money, a very good morning to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I hope the grace end.
Well, thank you so much. I hope you're well.
Very well by His grace.
We bless the Lord. So I've already looked at this 96-year-old land dispute that has been resolved. It took almost 100 years to resolve it. It actually dates back to the time of Prempeh I, and that is a good thing, setting some precedent in a way for some of these long-standing, intractable, if you like, land cases. It also says new utility tariffs, nightmare for businesses. I was just sharing the thoughts of the president of the AGI, the Association of Ghana Industries, who says the new adjustments in electricity and water prices is going to create a nightmare for businesses, Ghanaian businesses, especially on the back of the fact that people purchasing their products is not like before. They are facing so many dynamics with the banking industry and all of that, and this is really going to impact them. And there's also that issue I was just taking a look at the PAC sitting and how the foreign ministry, between 2007 and 2019, there was the award of a first contract in 2007, 90% of the sum paid to the contractor, 1.4 million Ghana cedis. Out of the 1.4 million Ghana cedis, work was not done owing to ill health. Fast forward to 2019, same project, 6.5 million Ghana cedis. Any quick reactions to these stories we've looked at so far?
Let me start with the PAC issue, the litany of perceived acts of corruption and graft. Year after year, with unfailing regularity, the Public Accounts Committee holds public meetings to review some of these unfortunate incidents. But what is worrisome is the chronic difficulty and monumental failure of the authorities to deal surgically with the naked act of thievery and brazen corruption. This is an indictment on a sense of responsibility and accountability as a nation.
Right.
We need to tackle this issue from the root and not the branch. The root is to deal surgically with the perpetrators and block all the loopholes. And the branch approach is just to make noise when they are revealed, when these acts are revealed, only to go to sleep for them to occur again. We are told that Parliament will hold a public meeting, public inquiry next week to tackle this issue. One prays that this will be followed by concrete action to deal with the perpetrators. Again, in the name of comprehensive journalism, we require of the media to follow this issue to their logical end. Most often we report such when they occur, we expose acts of corruption and go to sleep. This is the time. And the timing of this litany of corruption, the timing makes a mockery of a negotiation with the IMF. One can conclude that all economic rules are nothing but self-inflicted. we are told that we've lost as much as 3.1 billion, whilst we going cap in hand, begging for 3 billion. 3.1 billion has gone down the drain, whilst we are going for $3 billion. So, and the IMD that we are negotiating, the loan is not a gift. Again, we need to find money to pay back, and this will come with more pressure, economic pressure. This will pile up pressure on all of us as a nation. So there's a need for us. The only solution is to fix this surgical system at the root and not the branch. And I'm happy that the Supreme Court has brought analysis to the age-old land litigation. But there are copious examples of land litigations all over the country. And just last week, the Executive Secretary of Land Commission, James Dunstan, did indicate that with the aid of the technology, the Land Commission is going to fix some of these problems. And so this litigations, age-old litigations, be consigned to the judgment of history. One hopes that this will give us some light at the end of the tunnel, because many have lost, many have died in the course of litigation, and many houses have been plunged into debt as a result of litigation. And so there's this act of multiple states of land, and the use of macho men act to seize properties which do not belong to them should again be the thing of the past. Recently, we saw the military and other forces dealing surgically with these land guards. But again, in certain areas, land guardism is in full operation. So there's a need to extend the operations of the military in these areas so that legitimate property owners will have the peace of mind to develop their properties.
Well, interesting thoughts. Thank you for sharing. Let's take a quick look at education-related matters, especially as we're going to be discussing on some of them today on the show. Put out-of-school children in classrooms, Professor Anamwa Mensah urges government. That's in the middle spread of the Daily Graphic, pages 16 and 17. Now, the government should make conscious efforts to locate out-of-school children and put them in classrooms to ensure their proper development, an educational expert, Professor Jofus Anamwa Mensah, has said. He is quoted to have said, "Failure to put such children in school could result in their developing into certain personalities who would create problems for everyone." Professor Anamwa Mensah also called for increased investment in the educational sector to ensure no one was left behind, irrespective of where they were located, for the accelerated development of the country. Now, here's what the latest population census reveals. 1,215,546 children of school age 4 to 17 years in the country are not in school. Out of that number, almost 942,427 children had never attended school. This morning, for example, we're going to be dilating on the fact that in the Pandai district in the northern region, a lot of students in some schools don't even have desks on which to study, write, do anything in the classroom. We still have schools under trees and so many other dynamics. When you look at our educational sector, what do you see to be the things we're not getting right? And again, maybe just before you come in, when you look at the Human Capital Index that the World Bank has been putting out time and again, year after year, it shows that our students are not catching up with the rest of the world. Our students are not able to keep pace with the rest of the world. The last time we saw our national science and math quiz students with other students elsewhere, we gave excuses about why they were not able to assemble the intestines and other internal organs of the human being so quickly. I don't know what we're missing, but we're obviously missing something. Your take, Afilmoni.
Free SHS is the greatest thing to have happened to Ghana after independence. And you have every cause to trust ourselves, especially the ruling government, for making it possible for every Ghanaian, irrespective of their background, to access free education at a senior high level. But those revelations point to the fact that we have relegated issues at the basic level to the periphery or the periphery. As a result, our children, as just indicated, cannot cope with contemporary trends. So there's a need for us to sharpen our focus on basic education. Basic means most important. The simplest meaning of basic, anything basic, means the most important. So the most important aspect of education is not the tertiary level. The most important aspect of education is not SHS or JHS. The most important is the root, the primary, the foundation. So if the foundation is weak, the superstructure would actually be weaker. So there's a need for us as a nation to once again sharpen our focus, put more emphasis on at the basic level. When such incidents are exposed in the media, and TBT deserves kudos by their mission expose. Children sitting on bare floor, right? No table, no talk, nothing at all. Let alone talk about the conditions in which they live. All this impact negatively our human capital. So, once again, a call goes to the education authorities not to put all emphasis. This is not to de-emphasize senior high school education, senior high school. This is the time. Why roll out the free education? Again, calls have been made, strident calls are coming to take a second look at the senior high school education. Those who are in a position to pay should be made to pay, because we are facing challenges in fixing even provision of food for children in senior high school. So if people are in a position to pay, the finance minister is on record having said that he feels guilty going to Achimota school to dump his children without paying a first one. So we first review the free education without undermining the philosophy behind this free education. We need to go to the basic level and address the challenges there. Otherwise, the challenges will go and affect or dilute our human capital.
Interesting thoughts. Let's also look at this one, these two stories very quickly. We're proud of modest gains. That's the Vice President, Dr. Baumia. And the Vice President says he is proud of the modest gains achieved by the Akufo-Addo-led New Patriotic Party administration. Notwithstanding the achievements, the Vice President said there was still more room for improvement and that the government was working tirelessly to get the country back on track. There's also bonds coupon payment on page 21. Government banks reach a revised agreement, and the government has agreed to pay 5% coupon interest this year with regard to bonds that are held by banks only. It will also pay a single coupon of 9% on the 12 new bonds to be issued to bank holders who tender their old bonds. The government and the bankers also agreed on the removal or amendment of all clauses in the exchange memorandum that empowered the Republic to, at its sole discretion, vary the terms of the exchange. We know that recently the Auditor General, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice has been speaking on some of these matters. You cannot just vary someone's, there are regulations. If you can't roll over my bill, for example, like we've seen with the cocoa bill, with now some agreements being arrived at and all of that. All of these have happened. So 2 quick stories to reflect on in about a minute. The Vice President says we are proud of our modest gains, and he says the government is working tirelessly to get the country back on track. Do you see that tireless work? And what is your quick reaction to where we find ourselves on the bonds coupon payment?
News on agreement between the banks and the government on the nagging issue of the domestic exchange program is so welcome. But we're going to blow into a crisis of unthinkable proportions. And we are happy that the government has acted with promptitude to address this issue. I believe there are other issues which should be addressed. At least the first step has been taken, and bondholders can heave a sigh of relief that light is flickering at the end of the tunnel. Again, this is not to rake up fresh food. We fail to foresee this, all that's happening. We fail to address the issue from the problem, from the root. Before you even touch the savings of individuals, prudence dictates that you engage them, but this was not done, and only for us to go back in circles. So this idea of only going in circles without anticipating the challenges we impose upon ourselves should be a thing of the past. And the Vice President has all the latitude as a politician to tout his government's achievements. And many of those who also look at the other side. Every story has two or more sides. One side is that yes, they made some modest gains. Another side is that we still have a long way to go. And so it's up to the public to judge. We cannot underestimate the intelligence of the ordinary Ghanaian. They don't need any piece of intelligence to decide on them, to decide, to arrive at a conclusion, whether modern gains have paid, whether still we are going backwards in so many cycles. So yes, we cannot judge the fact that some gains have been made, and the Vice President also has the right to also praise to the heavens the achievements made by the government. But the reality on the ground is that we still have a long way to go as a nation.
We still have a long way to go as a nation. We actually have a long way to go with the papers, and we'll do that in the next 5 to 6 minutes. Krobia Asante Technical Vocational School closed down indefinitely. That's the Ghanaian Times newspaper, one of the first stories there, and it has to do with some acts of vandalism, and we've heard from the Ashanti Regional Minister on that. Farmer gets 4 years for stealing from police commander's bungalow. Talk of the impudence. And Pensioner Bondholder Forum engages former presidents on exemption from domestic debt exchange program. And there's been talk now of the fact that pensioner bondholders will actually be exempted. So the Pensioner Bondholder Forum has begun the process of engagements with former President John Agyekum Kufuor and former President John Dramani Mahama to seek their sympathy, support, and intervention for their cause. The forum said, as a result of these engagements, quote, "We have cancelled our intended convergence at the premises of the Ministry of Finance on Monday, January 23, 2023, and informed the police accordingly." The story goes on to say, Pensioner Bondholder Forum is a forum for the protection of pensioner investments and serves as the mouthpiece of all retirees across the country who have invested in government bonds. And so they've taken it a notch further, and they are going to be interacting with former presidents John Agyekum Kufuor and John Dramani Mahama to help them resolve the issue. There's also Auditor General's report, another concern. 26 ambulances valued at $4 million yet to arrive to support COVID-19 management. The story is on page 13. Let's get there very quickly. And Ghana is yet to receive 26 ambulances valued at $4 million, which it ordered to support COVID-19 management. An Auditor General's report on the country's COVID-19 expenditure has revealed. The report, covering the period March 2020 to June 2022, revealed that the Ministry of Health signed a contract on December 15, 2021 for the supply of Toyota Hayes Deluxe ambulances. Out of the total cost of $4,049,460.12, The document said 607,419.02 was paid for the vehicles to be delivered by January 15, 2022, but they remained undelivered as of November 28, 2022. It said the chief director of the ministry attributed the delay to a request made by the unnamed supplier for extension to enable the supplier to meet some technical specifications. It noted that, quote, under the current economic difficulties, the supplier could apply for price variation to unduly increase the cost of the contract, which could have been avoided if the ambulances had been supplied as scheduled. There's a lot here to do with the facts and the figures, but quick reactions to these stories. Pensioner bondholders and these ambulances. It reminds me of the other ambulance issue that we've not even completed dealing with.
The issue of 26 ambulances not being delivered, meanwhile, the nation has budgeted more than $4 million. And other revelations from the Auditor General all paint a picture of the leaking take place, and which is leaking profusely instead of protecting the sector. People without any purpose have found ways and means of leaking and lining their pockets. And it also painted, and it also gives an inkling of the stench which is so pervasive in the public sector. And the only way to utilize this stench is for actions to be taken. Number one, to plug the loophole, and number two, to deal surgically with the perpetrators. So we are tired of going in circles. This is the time for us to act, especially at the time when our economy is on the rope, when the cost of living is becoming more vitally bitter. And when, as a nation, we are confronted with all kinds of issues, especially about children whose future is so bleak because of the failure of the state to provide them with basic needs. On the vandalism as Phobia Santi school, it boggles the mind, even terrifies the soul, that students at this age, in their 15, 13, 16, 17, 18, will go to the extent of damaging school property with impunity. And one thing about impunity is that if it's not tackled at the root, it ignites a self-propelling cycle, which becomes hellishly difficult to deal with.
Right.
We've seen such acts of vandalism in others, and yet the children who are held to perpetrate them the more. We are told that in response to the vandalism at Phobia Santi school, a dean of discipline is going to be appointed by Ghana Education Service. And one wonders what this appointment can do to help address this challenge. So it is not the school authorities alone who have the responsibility to address this challenge. Parents.
Right.
Parents. So parents should do more to bring up their children in a way that when they grow, they will not depart from discipline. So parents, so we need, again, the root approach. If parents fail to discipline their children, bring them up in such a way that they will discipline wherever they go. They go to secondary schools and even universities to make up, to misbehave. The other day it was Commonwealth and other students, university students, people who are supposed to be enlightened, doing things which are very opposite of enlightenment. So that's the time for parents, please be up to your responsibility. Live up to your responsibility to train your children so that when they grow, wherever they go, the pattern, the discipline you instill in them.
Mr. Mori, thank you for those calls and thank you for joining us for this discussion this morning. We wish you the best of the day, sir.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.
Afil Mone is a former president of the Ghana Journalists Association. Just leave you with some headlines. Father kills son, Ahuntu Mano, a farming community in the Ahanta West municipality of the Western region, where there is shock as a father has shot his biological son to death. Banks to use Cocoa Board's deposits to pay cocoa bills, and retail customers who may not want to roll over their cocoa bills will be paid by the Ghana Cocoa Board deposits or placements at the banks. These stories in the middle spread, not the middle spread actually, pages 6 and 7 of the Daily Guide newspaper. Initially payments were made and some withdrawals were then subsequently made. So if you don't want to roll over, the opportunity will be given you to take your funds. Fuel prices to drop, that's according to COPEC. The graphic business debt exchange program, insurance sector takes huge hit, 40% of assets in government securities. And finally, the final newspaper, 208.7 million Ghana cedi COVID-19 projects uncompleted, though deadline exceeded. Those are the stories we have for you this morning. But before we get into sports, are you ready for the grand finale of the Ghana Science and Tech Explorer Prize Challenge? 50 schools from the Greater Accra and Ashanti regions are ready to showcase the prototype products aimed at solving societal challenges. Which team emerges winner of the G-Step Challenge? Join us tomorrow at the Accra International Conference Center. The time is 3 p.m. sharp. There'll also be an exhibition by our young ones as they seek to provide solutions to the myriad problems in our environment. Make a date with us and be part of the first ever award ceremony to reward our future innovators and inventors. The G-Step Challenge is organized by Dream Oval and supported by Foundation Bortner and Joy Prime. Up next, the latest in sports.
Good morning. Welcome to AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullah. The conversation surrounding the Black Stars coaching job continues, and the recent person to wade into that conversation is the Member of Parliament for Ningo Pram Pram constituency, Sam Nate George. According to him, the Ghana Football Association has handed the job to Chris Houghton, a former technical advisor of the national team. Otoado, who led Ghana to the 2022 FIFA World Cup, left his role after the competition, leaving the Black Stars coaching position vacant. And Sam George believes that the GFA has handed the job to Chris Houghton.
That job, they've given it to Chris Houghton already, so why are we wasting our time?
Already?
Oh.
So they shouldn't apply?
They've given it to him because they want someone they can manipulate, someone who they can use to do their business, someone who they can tell, if our team selection, okay, this one is my team player. Me, I'm at the GFA. This person plays for me. I'm his manager. Put him inside. Whether he's kicked the ball in 8 months or not, they put him inside. Look, let's not waste our time. People are doing business. You see, let's go and look for money to eat. Some people are using GFA to make money. They are using that to feed their families.
Do you have proof?
Oh. You've forgotten what happened at the World Cup. You want proof? I'll give you proof. Tell me how Baba Rahman found way into the last squad in our final game at the World Cup. What ball did he play? What ball had he played? Is Baba Rahman's agent not our GFA president? Look, people should not know us in this country. We are angry and we are walking. Your boy, you need powder. And I had to say, and now, remember, before. We know what's going on in this country.
One man who is interested in that role is Kwesi Appiah. He spoke recently to Prime Tech, and according to him, a former normalization committee member of the Ghana Football Association. The normalization committee is now defunct, though, because it was put up by FIFA to replace the leadership of the Ghana Football Association following the number 12 expose in 2018. He said during his tenure working with the normalization committee chairman, Dr. Kofi Amwa, Dr. Fukuma threatened to sack him as head coach of the Black Stars if he did not invite Sule Muntari and Kelvin Prince Boateng to the Black Stars.
Yeah, he suggested that. But as I've said, once I have my team, nobody can change the team.
He threatened to sack you if you don't do well.
No, but I told him I'm not afraid of being sacked. I mean, those threats I've heard it several times. But I'm not the type that those threats scare me. No.
But why did he suggest Sule Montari? What were the reasons he gave you?
No, he thought Sule and Kevin should be part of the team. But you see, meanwhile, you ask yourself, are these players that you're talking of, are they playing? And if they are playing, are they in top form that can compete at that level? You know, for me, they were very good players. You know, they were very, very good players. And especially Sule, anytime he's in the team, he gives out 100%.
Yeah.
Mm. So, but you don't tell me, go and bring them as if I don't know what I'm doing. Or if you are better than the coach, then you should have been the coach and be coaching.
You felt disrespected by that?
Yeah?
Did you feel disrespected? You felt disrespected by that?
Yeah, I mean, the moment you try to stress that point more and more, then you're trying to tell me I don't know my job.
Then the 2019 AFCON, well, you didn't call them. The conversation ended there, 2019. But I know he was working on renewing your contract, right? Did he have conversations with you in terms of renewing your contract?
He has a conversation with me. And he was thinking of reducing my salary. And I said, look, you can't reduce my salary. If you reduce my salary, then you should take yeah.
So why was Kwesi appeared there? He has applied for the Black Stars coaching job. Another person to have also sent in his application to lead the senior national team is Accra House of Oak head coach Slavko Matic. He has also applied for the job per Joy Sports sources. He sent in his application last week, Friday, seeking to become the next technical head of the Black Stars. Now let's move. Kwesi appeared there. He has applied for the Black Stars coaching job. Another person to have also sent in his application to lead the senior national team is Accra House of Oak head coach Slavko Matic. He has also applied for the job per Joy Sports sources. He sent in his application last week, Friday, seeking to become the next technical head of the Black Stars. Now let's move on now and talk about one of the pillars within the Ghana football that died over the weekend, and it is Alhaji Jawola. He worked with Nana Sambru Butler, who was a former chairman of the Ghana Football Association. Bru Butler says that Alhaji was a team player.
And Alhaji was somebody with respect. I mean, he was a good administrator. As I said, he was a director at the Ministry of Finance. He had held certain positions. So, and he was a good clubman of good standing, RTU. So he won, and we went in together as a team in 1993 as chairman and vice chairman.
Wow.
We worked very hard, yes, with mutual respect for each other. He had his strengths, I had my strengths. And of course, we had a good team. So, reasonably good achievements. We were acknowledged by FIFA as the world's best under juvenile and youth football team in the world. Nobody should take that away from me. It's for Ghana, not for me, but it was there, and it's still in the books of FIFA.
Wow. Yeah.
Going forward, we won the World Cup in Ecuador. Okay, he was the chairman, he was the vice chairman of the FA, and was the chairman of
the management committee.
The management committee of Starlets.
Very well.
They took the lead there. I joined them, and I joined them for the opening, and I came back and went back when we progressed. We were going to.
And the latest to send in his condolences and tributes to The family of Alhaji Jaola is a former chief executive officer of Kumasi Asante Kotoko, Herbert Mensah, who has been eulogizing the man who led Ghana to win its first ever under-17 World Cup title in 1995.
My dear brother Alhaji Jaola, rest in peace, rest in peace. Alhaji, you meant so much to so many people, and everybody knew a different aspect of you. I was shocked to learn of your passing, and I put my hands in my head, and all I could say is that God knows best. We are told that there is a time for everything, for living and indeed for death. And I guess your time has come, my brother. We've shared many great times and many great moments together. Very few people will realize the closeness that we had with one another. And I think that historically, we have to go back to my tenure in football when you were also the GFA president. You had served with under Sam, the butler, and then you came probably at the most turbulent moment. Turbulent because I brought turbulence in change. But what people didn't realize that in a lot of our confrontation and our disagreements publicly, privately, we were agreed on the need to transform football, the need to commercialize football, the need to fill the stadiums, this need to get greater integrity into the game, the need for club owners to behave in a certain way. Very few people understood that. And we went through that during your tenure, where we could actually fill stadiums and parks, not by accident, but methodology, based upon a global understanding of what was required in sports.
Let's end with tennis, and Wimbledon champion Elena Rybakina swept past Jelena Ostapenko to reach her first Australian Open semi-final. Rybakina fired 11 aces and 24 winners as she claimed a dominant 6-2, 6-4 victory. And this is how we wrap up AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi.
Welcome back on the AM show. We get into our first big story, and the Auditor General has disclosed that the government spent 10 billion Ghana cedis of money mobilized for COVID-19 support on budget support or budgetary support. In that same report, the Auditor General reports that $80 million worth of vaccines paid for by government has not been delivered. According to the AG, that's the Auditor General, government paid over $120 million to the United Nations Children's Fund and the African Vaccine Acquisition Trust, but only $38 million worth of vaccines were delivered. Our guest this morning on those matters, Dr. Daniel Appiah, public administration expert at the University of Ghana Business School. We are also joined by a lawyer, Kweku Paintsil. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
Right. Good morning.
So we have Daniel Appiah on the line currently. Mr. Appiah, thank you for making the time. Let me just find out from you. When you look at the latest Auditor General's report and what it reveals, especially there are so many angles we can look at, ambulances and others, but especially when it comes to COVID-19 expenditure, the bottom line, or maybe we should start from the general point. What do you see when it comes to sloppiness, slippages in our financial system?
Right. Good morning, and good morning again to our listeners. What I see, I think there are about three main things that are quite revealing and a bit disturbing. The first one is that in the report, you don't find anywhere where the Auditor General has surcharged anyone for wrongdoing to refund any money. And if we juxtapose this with the last report that the Auditor General issued concerning the recovery of money from surcharges, the Auditor General stated in his last report that he will only issue a surcharge where sufficient evidence has been adduced. And so if you look at this report and we don't find anywhere where anyone has been surcharged, my conclusion is that he doesn't have sufficient evidence or has not gathered sufficient evidence that anyone has misappropriated any money for the money to be recovered. The second important thing is that if you look at this COVID-19 special audit report, you see that the largest amount of money came from those who bought government bonds. That is $10 billion worth of money. Those who bought government bonds, today they are suffering. And yes, you read the report and there are many areas where we find expenditures that have not been appropriately utilized. And yet we are told that no one has done anything to warrant a refund or to be surcharged for wrongful use of the expenditure. I think the third major aspect that I find disturbing is where we find our donor partners continue to make payments, millions of dollars, payments for COVID vaccines that have not been delivered. And I think that this is very worrying. We have to ask ourselves whether our donor partners are in here really to help us, or they are here to make profit from our sweat. So these are the major things that I really can point out from the report in the broad sweep.
In a broader sense, we'll get to the narrower sense of COVID-19 itself, but is that to say, because we've heard from the former Auditor General, Daniel Yao Domelevo, who was surcharging, and he has expressed his surprise about the situation, and he is saying that there should be surcharging. Of course, we know that the current Auditor General seems to have adopted somewhat of a different approach. In fact, when you look at this Fourth Republic, it is only Daniel Yao Domelevo who stands out in terms of some of the extent to which he went, surcharging, putting, stuff out there, going to court and all of that. Is that necessarily wrong if the current Auditor General does not toe that line?
Well, that is not wrong. If you look at the previous reports that the Auditor General came up with, that was October 2022, he issued a surcharge of 1.5 billion cedis, and then he recommended that the Attorney General should actually follow up with the recovery of that. What has happened to it? And that was the only surcharge that this Auditor General claimed to have issued. And so if after issuing that surcharge of 1.5 billion from October to present, and that was even after our demonstration, when we went to picket at the Auditor General's office, so we embarked on demonstration. Right. And then that was when he came out with that report. So after that single surcharge, if nothing has been done about it, why should he continue to surcharge? As yesterday, Mr. Domelevo said, the tree under which Kwekwa Nancy died, his son in Tekuma will not go and sit under to those. And so if at the end of the day, your predecessor continued a surcharge, and at the end of the day, he was booted out of office, and you have issued a single surcharge and nothing has been done about it, at least to the best of our knowledge, we have not heard that that money has been recovered. Why will you continue to surcharge? In any case, this Auditor General was praised by our president not for recovering money, but he was praised for issuing reports. And he was praised, the president said he has issued more reports, more up-to-date reports than the previous Auditor General. So I think that he has continued this line because he is being praised not for recovering money, but for issuing surcharge. And the single surcharge that he's issued, the money has not been recovered. So I think that he is playing, the line for which he is being praised for.
So basically you're saying that this administration is supportive of him, is praising him because he merely puts out reports and no surcharges follow. There's not much in terms of recovery. In fact, I remember the last time there was a case about the finance ministry itself with ghosts on the payroll. 3 people. Can you imagine? So, in other words, what then would you make of the work of the Auditor General? Is he living up to expectation?
Well, the Auditor General has been put there to ensure efficient use of our money, to disallow expenditure, and then to surcharge those who have not used our money very well for him to recover it. And since he assumed office, he has not recovered any money. The only money that is recovered are those that Yaodomelevo surcharge people, for which he came and then he said he had recovered 2.2 billion cedis from that money. But for him himself, since he assumed office, he has not been able to recover a penny from the single surcharge that he has issued. So he's certainly not living up to expectation. And I think when we come to the details of the report itself, there are many questions to ask as to whether he is really doing a good job in terms of due diligence, even with the issue of the reports that he has come up with. So I will not, by any stroke of my pen, say he's doing a good job. No.
Right, we'll get there eventually, but just this final bit before we get into the details. So the Auditor General, interestingly, did not cover some areas because we would see from Finance Ministry reports in the past, before Parliament and among others, that they had mentioned in terms of spending more than the Auditor General seems to have tackled. In fact, there are some 3 areas that appear not to have been covered by the Auditor General, which could mean that if we look into those areas as well, we could find some misappropriation of the funds that we secured for COVID-19. Is that, I don't know how to put it, is that acceptable? Is it shocking to you, surprising that we have an Auditor General's report and some areas are actually not included in this assessment, in this audit?
Well, on the one hand, for me, it is not shocking because, as I've already stated, no matter the kind of report that he issues, his appraisal and then, let me say, his continuous stay in office does not really depend on his ability to recover money. And so if he doesn't cover other areas, hey, the thing is, who cares? Those who put him there, are they really concerned about his ability to ensure recovery of wrongful expenditure or misapplied expenditure or monies that have been stolen? I don't think that his bosses are really very much interested or have been very much interested in that particular angle. So I am not very surprised at all. In any case, he says that only little part of the money, the COVID-19 expenditure, went through the gift miss process. About $530-something million went through that out of the billions of money that have been spent. At the end of the day, all that he recommended in the report is that people who did not spend the money through the gift miss, our tried and tested gift miss system, should make sure that going forward they do the right thing. Come on. And people are supposed to spend money by using the appropriate management information systems, and then they've not done that. And all you can say is you have to make sure that the right thing is done. And so, as I said, there are many questions to raise, but if we put this into context with regards to when he's assumed office and what he has been able to achieve so far, and the fact that he's been praised for issuing reports and not recovering money, I am not surprised at all. I'm not surprised.
So since you've mentioned that time and again, do you have any problems with the fact that he's being praised? I mean, and I'm looking at it from this angle. Is his work commensurable with the praise that is being sung about him?
I think if we put this in context, in terms of his predecessor's job, his predecessor recovered or at least surcharged people who have misused our money. And this Auditor General came into office, has recovered 2.2 billion. But his predecessor was not praised for that kind of work. He was kicked out of office. And then he has come, he has not recovered anything, and then he's being praised. Don't you think it is commensurate with the praise? Because that's how it started.
Interesting assertion. Go ahead. I thought you had landed.
Yeah, and so I do not expect him to depart from this line of work. I do not expect him to depart from this kind of output that he continues to put out there. I don't expect that to happen at all. If anything at all, perhaps maybe even in the previous report, he tested the system to see whether that 1.5 billion cedis that he surcharged, whether it is going to be acted on. And since that report was issued October last year, we haven't heard anything. And so he's tried the waters, tested it, and realized that, hey, I mean, he's not going to he's not going to be praised for recovering money. Those who are responsible for recovering it are maybe not going to act. And so he has learned the lessons from the Dumelevo debacle, and then he is also now towing the line where he has been praised, that is for issuing report. And so I do not expect that he will depart from this. And so we should expect the continuation of this line of work.
Interesting thoughts. It resonates with what some civil society groups have been sharing, that, look, maybe he's learned from the foibles, so to speak, of Daniel Yao Domelevo. You go this way, there will be a pushback, and he's just maybe trying to save his skin. We're not saying that is what exactly it is. But the Auditor General's report has shown that we got some $2.5 billion, the equivalent of about 21 billion Ghana cedis, mobilized from different sources when it comes to COVID-19. Like I've intimated, it's not all encapsulated into this figure because there are other areas the Auditor General did not look at. But when you look at even those areas, the sum of money that went directly into COVID-19 issues, health, social relief and security issues created by COVID, took just 1/4, 25% of the chunk of money. The majority of the funds went into government programs like Free SHS, LEAP, and we also know that budgetary support took some 10 billion Ghana cedis. From the basic point of managing funds for a pandemic or whatever from outside sources, what is your reaction to this revelation?
Right. I think we also recall that a special audit report some time ago was issued on the activities of Guest Fund. And then many of us were not happy. It became a big issue. And reading this report, you will see that the largest amount of money raised from a particular session, which is the Bank of Ghana COVID-19 bond money, 10 billion. That money, interestingly, was pushed to Guest Fund and then Senate. I mean, can you believe this? You, the audit service or the Auditor General, issues a report that money is being managed through that channel. You are not satisfied with it, you are not happy with it, and then government mobilizes money, and then the largest percentage, which is 45% of the total COVID money mobilized, goes into that same source. Come on. What you question whether the one spending the money really, at the end of the day, cares about the previous reports that you issue that, hey, in this area, money is being spent there. You are not satisfied with it. Procedures seem not to have been followed. And yes, new money is raised. And then that 45% of money raised now goes back into that Guest Fund and then Senate. I think that if you are one of the bondholders who today is suffering or being punished for going to the aid of government, for buying Bank of Ghana COVID-19 bonds, and then realizing that that money was put in an area where the previous Auditor General issued a damning report, I think that you will be shaking in your seat. You will not be happy at all. You will not be smiling. And in your negotiations with government, I don't know what they are going to tell government, but there is nothing in there to really suggest that we really seriously want to learn from our mistakes and then improve on our expenditure to ensure efficiency and then value for money. Once again, let's put it into the context of all the previous reports that have come. And then the fact that the reports on Guest Fund, the reports on the other areas have problems. And yes, the largest percentage of this money still went into those areas. And in the details, you ask yourself, how was it spent in terms of the Guest Fund and the Senate one, the bondholders' money? How was it spent? How was it spent? And then you don't get the details in this special audit report. And that's a serious thing, really. Maybe if the Speaker of Parliament has got the power or authority maybe to reject this report and ask him to go back and then do a detailed one, maybe I think that would be my recommendation, that he should be asked to do a better job, a detailed report.
I do not know about that, but what you said just brings to mind, it puts certain things into perspective in terms of our spending. You made mention of it, and especially considering that even in these difficult times, even as we go to the IMF, even after everything we faced, you know the budgetary deficit for this year, over 61.5 billion Ghana cedis. In fact, we're going to run into more of a deficit than in recent years, yet we have all the constraints we have. So it would appear that this is some sort of trajectory we are on. I don't know what your take is on that.
Yes, it's a trajectory that we've been on for more than 10 years, 20 years, and it's going to continue. After all, so long as we continue to operate within this constitutional framework, that weakens the internal accountability mechanisms, we are going to continue to operate on this path. I do not see any change unless we review the framework, one for the appointment and work of Auditor General, for the appointment and work of our highest spending officers and all that. And so I do not really think that we are going to depart from this, because that is the framework that we have created to continue. So I'm sorry to not to offer some kind of optimism for a better future. But the truth must be told that for the past 10, 20 years, if you read all the Auditor General's report, look at the work of the Melevo, you look at the work that this Auditor General has put out there, and then you see the path. There is no cause for anyone to be hopeful that we are going to get something good out of the work of this current Auditor General.
Those are some damning words. It's a damning verdict that you pass on the work of the current Auditor General. And I noted when you spoke about the changing the framework for the appointment and work of the Auditor General. What then? You're speaking of the law then. Maybe Parliament must come in. The parameters within which the Auditor General works there must be some shifting of the goalposts, maybe to broaden the scope and to give the law-backed surcharging. It had never been applied. So it's a plus or minus pros and cons situation. The law gives the power to the Auditor General to do that. It took Domelevo to come and exercise that right or bring to bear that power. So would you necessarily blame? Where would you lay the blame, and what do we do? Would it be the administrations and how maybe, like you said, Domelevo did certain things that the people praised, but the administration did not praise because, let's be blunt, it went against them. Now someone is doing what works for them, but not for the people, and they are praising that person. So where do we find that fine ground or that line that we have to clip in order to get what we need?
Right. So once again, here, if you look at the work of the Constitutional Review Commission, they raise also issues about the process of appointment of the Auditor General. If we really want the office of the Auditor General to be effective, then the appointment and confirmation should not be something that solely lies in the hands of the President. Look, this is our Chief Auditor, who is supposed to audit the executive, who is supposed to audit all public sector organizations and then issue his findings, disallow expenditure, surcharge people. And if that same referee is appointed by the President, and then at the end of the day, I don't think that, and all of us certainly have seen the outcome of it, the output that have been generated. And so it is important that we review the constitutional framework, we review the structures of public accountability in this country. Just this week, we heard the chairman of the Public Accounts Commission, when one official from an agency appeared before him, and then the person said that they had corrected what the auditor had raised. And then the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee said, yes, but still, we are still going to put you for court or process you for court. At the end of the day, who is the person who is going to take it up? It's the Attorney General who is going to take it up. And would the Attorney General take it up? The Auditor General says, I've surcharged someone, I've pushed it to the doorstep of the Attorney General. We still haven't heard anything. Why is the Attorney General not picking it up? So the time has come for us really to review, overhaul the constitutional framework governing our public accountability, how we govern this country. Otherwise, I'm sorry that we are on a path that is not going to lead us to any bright kind of future or any bright kind of prospect.
Hold for me. Let me bring in Kweku Painto, a lawyer. Mr. Painto, thank you for joining us on the AM show. You would have to unmute, Mr. Painto. Hello, Kweku Painto, if you can hear me, please unmute.
I've unmuted.
Right,
Hello?
I can hear you now. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
Thank you very much.
We've had quite a conversation already. I just heard from Dr. Pia saying that, look, we've got to the point where the Auditor General may not necessarily be delivering the goods, the bacon, as the politicians will put it, which the people want. And so we may have to overhaul the legal frameworks binding the work, the appointment of the Auditor General. But before you get into that, I want you to take a swipe at the latest Auditor General's report, what it reveals, vis-a-vis what we have seen over the years, especially putting it into context when Daniel Yaw-Domelevo was Auditor General. What are the discrepancies? Are we doing any better in terms of these latest reports that we've seen?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, what we are seeing is that over the years, the level of misappropriations, in other words, the level of, I don't want to use the word corruption yet, because the basic fund I have shows that so much of our public funds are going to places where they ought not to be going. So it's been going up year by year, and that is what the historical analysis shows, meaning that Ghanaians as a people, our public officials that we have put in place are not making any change to the way they do things. The first point. Place. I have heard the previous speaker, and I associate with him in many of the observations that he has made, which is that apart from the level, possibly, I remember, I think somewhere in the course of last year, the Occupy Ghana decided to engage the Attorney General regarding their failure or refusal or neglect to enforce the findings of the Auditor General with regard to surcharges. Indeed, and in fact, it was about the work of the Auditor General as a whole. In other words, the fact that the Auditor General ought to be issuing, making these allowances and issuing surcharges. It appears that between 2017 up to about last year that the Occupy Ghana decided to engage the Attorney General, there had only been one disallowance and surcharge. And that is, quite frightening, if we may put it that way. Whether it's a lack of will on the part of the Attorney General or whether there is lack of evidence on the part of the Auditor General, we cannot tell. But the evidence is that what was put before Parliament constituted prima facie evidence of the corruption or the misapplication or the misappropriation that had taken place within our financial and accounting system of the public service. And therefore, if there are good reasons, those people ought not to be prosecuted, then we as a people are entitled to know. And that can only come from two sources. First, the Accountant General, the Auditor General, and secondly, the Attorney General. So it's very difficult. I'm having a difficulty at laying blames on any one of them, but they raise good questions for us as citizens of this country. Whether it's a lack of will, whether it's the lack of something that is preventing them from going about it. But generally, they speak well. But you make this
you ask whether it's a lack of will or something else.
It just makes one point that as a people,
What do you think? What do you think? Hitting the nail on the head. What do you think is the problem?
I mean, because they've got all the parties. It appears that it's a combination of both. You know, because first and foremost, the observation has been made that in the current report, the Auditor General had not made any disallowances at all. I will make the point that it was Domelevo who decided, as part of his work ethics, to include in his report disallowances and charges. But there's no law that requires that this must be done at any particular point in time. In other words, once the observations have been made, once the findings have been made, once the facts have been placed before Parliament, then first it behoves themselves to take steps under the Constitution, because the person that the Constitution is also allowance when such charges have been issued for parties affected by it to go to court, and if they've got any reason to show that the disallowances have not been properly made, also to apply to the court for the court to to strike out, or rather to stop the Auditor General from the purported exercise of his power. So that power exists. So why the Auditor General is not doing that? I mean, it's amazing. And why the Attorney General himself, who obviously ought to be cooperating with the Auditor General in that direction. If you call it political will, well, let Ghanaians make that judgment. But there can be no rational reason, no rational explanation for either or both of them failing, refusing, or neglecting to do what the Constitution requires them to do. But if you look at the history of this Auditor General's report, and the fact that it took an organization, an NGO, to enter the court, Supreme Court, in 2017 in order to get a judgment from the Supreme Court, in order to compel the Auditor General to do its own constitutionally empowered duty, then you put all those of them in context, then you can come to the conclusion that there is a lack of political will in this country to enforce the reports of the Auditor General as a whole.
Okay.
One other observation that I myself have made with regard to this issue has to do with the fact that somewhere must be, I forgot the exact day, but there was a matter between Zoom Lion and Auditor General, where the Auditor General had issued a surcharge against Zoom Lion in respect of about 200 or so million of Ghana cedis, where the evidence clearly disclosed that that money was somehow improperly paid to Zoom Lion. Now, in the matter that transpired, the only issue that arose in the Supreme Court was whether Zoom Lion or its officers, whoever they were who received the money, could be categorized as public officers for purposes of enforcing the surcharge against them. And the Supreme Court concluded, after having analyzed the law, the evidence, and everything, that Zoom Lion, for those purposes, could not be called a public officer or could be a public official, and that ended the matter. And I look at it, and I mean, with due respect, those are the kind of circumstances that sometimes citizens are tempted to say that the law is an ass. Why is the law an ass in the circumstances? It's not that the Supreme Court got it wrong. But if we conclude that the person who received the money that the evidence discloses was improperly paid, was not a public official, and the matter just ended there without any subsequent effort on the part of the Auditor General to go against the people, because every instance of corruption, misapplication involves parties. In other words, one on the other side, the person who wrongfully made the payment is accountable as long as the person is to the government's payroll. But the matter just ended there, meaning that 200 million of our own money somehow went off the books because the person who received it is not a public official. You know, so I associate myself with the previous speaker when he makes the point that maybe it's about time that we re-looked at all of these things. But I don't really have a lot of hope in just making laws and laws and laws, because we have the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. The laws that we have are sufficient, in my view and opinion, to be able to deal with all the kind of situations that we're talking about. So, for instance, in Ghana, only the Attorney General has got the power to prosecute. So every time that the Attorney General decides that he's not going to prosecute, there is an issue as to whether a private citizen, for instance, can initiate action. In the same way, for instance, that Occupy Ghana went to Supreme Court and got the Supreme Court now to make the order. Now, the one who's supposed to enforce it is not enforcing it. So maybe next law that we may have to make for ourselves is whether an individual like you and I can possibly go to court with the evidence presented by the Auditor General and try and see whether on our own we can enforce some of these things on behalf of the Republic. In my opinion, that's about the only way out, because as long as we have the institutions that is going to take an individual, possibly like Domelevo, maybe there are more in the system who may, on their own initiative. But of course, it doesn't appear to me that, I mean, what we have in place is too bad. But if it's going to take individuals, then maybe we all have to look at it from this angle. I can go on and on and on, but what we having now, it's not really good for the body politic. It's not really good for all of us. It shows a certain form of indolence on the part of the people who are supposed to enforce the law. It shows a form of impunity. It's an encouragement for those who are engaged in this endemic corruption to continue, and it breeds impunity. And then at the end of it all, the citizen at large is found ourselves, I mean, without hope, if I may put it that way.
So
that's my view about it.
So
Yes.
a quick one to both of you, and then we get into further figures. Quite a breakdown, because there are so many, there's a plethora of issues we have to look at. But very quickly, starting with you, Lawyer Paintsel. So the AG, I mean, the Auditor General, like Dr. Appiah was saying. Now, isn't he merely then, it's a case of he who pays the piper chooses the tune, you know? So he, like Daniel said earlier, he saw what happened to the former Auditor General and decided, look, I've tried something, surcharged one here, nothing has happened. And when he went down the radar or went off the radar, he got praised. Is it not a mere case of that? And again, the talk has been brought to bear. You have mentioned the lack of political will to enforce the work of the Auditor General. Is it not reflective in what we're seeing? And how do we get around that? Very quickly.
You know, it's not the commentary, but I will make this that it means that the occupant, the one who is in the office, is spineless. And please repeat the word, spineless. It means that the person hasn't got the will.
You're saying the Auditor General is spineless. He doesn't have the gall to do what must be done.
No, that's how far I will go. If the evidence is that he's doing what he's doing for fear that he may lose his job, then his conscience, he has sacrificed his very conscience to be able to stay in office. What it means is that the job that we have given to him, Ghanaians have given to him to discharge for the interests of the public at large, he had decided to sacrifice it for his personal gain or personal interest or personal whatever. And that's why, you know, Vaco, they used to say that one man can make a difference. It's about how individuals who are appointed into public offices can have the guts. We have a saying that if you cannot stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. I mean, there's no reason why people who occupy political offices will lose their conscience, will lose their will, will lose their everything that they have, for the only reason that if they do what is right, somebody will fire them. I mean, history will judge them and judge them very badly. And it goes back and back in this country, not only even to the Auditor General. We have had times in this country where judges were so fearful of themselves that they would rather bend to do anything than to state the truth. So it's a context, maybe it's a Ghanaian character. You know, some of the things that we're going to talk about, I'm not talking as a lawyer, I'm talking as a Ghanaian. I'm talking about a person who has made an observation of the way we do things in this country from whatever time to whatever time. And that's why I believe that merely making more laws, manufacturing more laws, creating special laws for special situations will not be enough. will not be enough. It's about time maybe we begin to examine the character called Ghanaian, the person who's called a Ghanaian, the will, whether our culture has anything to do with the way we do things, whether it takes particular, political climate to create the people that we have, whether, I mean, come on, because see, what are we talking about? Now, for instance, in the politics of this thing that's going on, we have the opposition who's making the loudest noise. Come how many years' time, then it's going to reverse. So it's a circus that we are running in this country, where none of the parties or none of us is really willing to commit ourselves to a real change in the way that we do things. And therefore, it takes somebody, it's time to make noise, then it comes the other time, then we are all left as Ghanaians. We are losing. Let me go back.
It's an interesting point you make there, but let me bring in Dr. Daniel Appiah. So we've been told about, I mean, it's an interesting point he makes there, Lawyer Paintsel, about the fact that, look, even if we switched administrations, it seems to be a bit of a ping pong. We've had these problems with Auditor General's reports or Auditors General reports in the past, and if that political will is not there, we'll just keep shifting the goalposts, saying this and that, but we'll always end up here. Did we not hear about zero tolerance for corruption? Then we were told corruption had been with us since the days of Adam. Did we not hear under Atta Mills and Mahama about corruption and dealing with it? What did we see? Now we've been told about the Anas principle. I suppose it's been thrown out the window. How can we get out of this then?
We can get out of this by changing the structure of governance. Look at this current parliament. Is this not the first time that we've seen a budget that has been submitted to parliament, and we've seen the opposition having the power to at least reduce or reject certain budgetary allocations? Why is it that we didn't get that in the past? It's because the structure of parliament has changed. And in all countries that have made serious progress in their development, they don't operate this kind of system of government where the president appoints Auditor General and all ministers and all chief executives and all board members. No, they don't have this system of government where you have to wait to be fortunate to get 137 members in parliament. It is as they have structures of government that empowers parliament, that empowers public accounts committee, that have got special courts dedicated for attending to the report of Auditor General, prosecuting those who deserve to be prosecuted. So it's about the structure of our governance system. Unless we review that within our constitutional framework, we won't go anywhere. Compare our system with the Asian countries. Compare the African system of governance with the Asian countries. Out there in the Asian countries, you see this West prime ministerial system whereby a prime minister who has won his seat in the constituency becomes the leader of the government and then is held accountable by his peers within the house. In our system, even if parliament passes a vote of no confidence in the minister, you still require the president to approve it. Where are you going with this kind of system? In a system where every 4 years you have to go to the electoral polls, and yet across all Africa, you don't find any country apart from Ghana and then Nigeria doing elections 4 years. We have over 50 whatever countries. Only Ghana and Nigeria doing elections 4 years. It tells you there is something fundamentally wrong about our system of governance.
Are you suggesting that the presidential cycle? Are you suggesting the presidential cycle should be extended like we have in maybe the Ivory Coast and other jurisdictions, 6 years and all of that? Is that what you're suggesting?
At least we know that all the countries that have made serious progress don't have 4-year short term. It's only Ghana in Africa that has got the shortest tenure of government. And that is something
which governments are you referring to?
The second thing is that those making serious progress.
Which governments are you referring to? Because I know other countries which also have 4-year tenures.
You can talk Mauritius, Cape Verde.
Okay.
No, only Ghana and Nigeria have got 4 years in Africa. Talk about Cape Verde. Okay, talk about Cape Verde. Talk about Mauritius. Talk about the South Koreans and all that. In any case, Ghana didn't start with this 4 years. When we were making progress some years back, prior to independence and during independence, we had a 5-year tenure regime that gives at least the government a longer term, to plan and then to implement projects. But if you have this short term, the shortest tenure in Africa, where you have to demonstrate that you have spent some money, and then within 4 years you have to go back to the post, this is some of the results that you are going to reap. But more importantly, a system whereby the structures of accountability in terms of the appointment of the Auditor General, appointment of High Court judges, Supreme Court judges, where the work of the Public Accounts Committee ends and all that, everything is concentrated in the hands of this president or of a president, you are not going to go very far. And on almost every governance aspect knows that with this kind of cycle in Africa, in Ghana, we are not going to go far. We pray that at the end of the day, we will be able to sustain our system of governance until such a time that we willingly reform the constitutional framework. So it's about reforming, restructuring the architecture of governance. Otherwise, we won't go anywhere.
Let's look at some of the facts and the figures, Lawyer Paintsel. So we've seen how some $2.5 billion was accrued, the equivalent of about 21 billion Ghana cedis, which is not the full total because we've got different figures from the Ministry of Finance in the past, and it would appear the Auditor General has not audited all COVID-19 funds. But even when you look at those scanty figures that we've been given, you would see that just about 25% was expended on purely COVID-19 related matters, health, security, and all of that. Then we decided to use some of the funding to support our budget, 10 billion Ghana cedis in all. We expended some of it on free SHS, LEAP. From the legal standpoint, what are the problems, what are the gray areas in respect of that? Quickly on that point. Hello, Kweku Paintsel, if you're with us.
Yeah, the Paintsel, please unmute.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, please go ahead,
Hello?
Mr. Paintsel.
Yeah, it's a case of misapplication of funds. And what it means is that when Parliament or when by law funds have been approved for a specific purpose, the failure, refusal, or neglect to use it for the purpose for which it was approved is a misapplication. You have got no right, you have got no power, you've got no authority, unless the authority that you're talking about is expressly provided for in the same instrument by which you were required to use those funds. As I understand it, the funds have been used without further reference to whoever approved the funds, and it's like everybody has got a right to use it. I think it's just wrong. And you see, it's not every fund that people use or misapply which must be possibly due to corruption, if I may put it that way. Sometimes the negligent use of funds, the improper use of funds, they're all forms of, if I may put it bluntly, corruption. And therefore, whoever misapplied those funds ought to be brought to book, ought to be accounted to Ghanaians for why we have, trusted you with these funds for a particular purpose, and you divert it for some other purposes. And even if it comes out eventually that those funds were properly used, for instance, the misapplication makes it improper. And such officers ought to be held to account for the diversion, if I may put it, diversion of a sort. And it's not permissible by law for you to do that. That's the way I would address that particular issue. It's a form of impunity. It's a form of taking the law into your hands and doing what you have not been instructed to do. It's like giving your child money to go and buy bread for you, and he goes and he comes back and says, I got cake for you because I felt cake is better than bread. He's got no right to make a choice for you regarding what he thinks is better for you. It's as simple as that. And that's how Ghanaians as a whole have been. Yes.
Dr. Appiah, is your thinking same on this matter? Dr. Appiah, is your thinking same on this matter?
Right. Let's come to the facts, as you say, the facts of this report. The first question that I raise is who actually requested for this special audit report to be done? And here I am pointing my hands or my finger at the competence of the one who issued the report. If you look at paragraph 1 of the transmitter letter accompanying this report, it states, or it addresses the Honorable Speaker of Parliament and states that your request dated 14th July 2022, and it states the request number, HM blah, 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 blah. When you go to the executive summary, now the same date, 14 July 2022, the same request number, now he says that now the request is made by the Ministry of Finance. Is it possible for the Minister of Finance and for the Speaker of Parliament, sorry, Freddie, is it possible for the Minister of Finance and the Speaker of Parliament to have sat down the same day, made the same request with the same request number on the same day, the same month, and yet in the report you find this there? Where is the due diligence? And this is the Auditor General who was accusing the previous occupant of the office for having lost all cases in court because not sufficient evidence had been adduced. And yes, we are writing this important report, and we cannot even tell from the report who actually requested for this special audit to be done, because you have the Minister of Finance and then the Speaker of Parliament all being given the same request number, the same days, the same month. So who requested for this report? Who requested for it? So as we are looking at the governance issues and constitutional issues and legal issues, we also have to look at the competence of the one issuing the report. In taking this work very seriously, having the will to give us value for money and then moving forward.
So let me put that pointed question to you.
In the report.
Let me put that pointed question to you. On the back of these very points you make, on the back of all that you've said, do you find the Auditor General currently to be competent, since you use the word competence? Do you find him to be competent to be at post on the back of what we've seen so far?
On the back of this report, since we cannot tell who exactly requested for the audits to be carried out, because we have two different persons, the Speaker of Parliament and then the Minister of Finance, being cited as the source of this audit report and given the same days, the same request number, this is certainly not a competent kind of, I wouldn't say this report, due competence has been exerted in preparing this report. I wouldn't say that.
Gentlemen, let's take a quick look.
He goes back and does.
Go ahead with your point. I didn't notice you were continuing. Please go ahead.
He those that he has cited in the report for having requested for the audit report, I think they have to raise this matter, that from the report, they cannot really see whether it is they who requested for it, and they have to ask him to go and do a better job.
So let's take a quick look at a few issues before we wrap. Lawyer Paintel, so you would have heard that the Ministry of Health, on behalf of government, paid a sum of about $120 million to UNICEF or AVAT for vaccines. We got just about $81.8 million. We paid for $81.8 million worth of COVID-19 vaccines that have not been delivered. We've taken stock of about $38 million worth of it in our cold rooms. That's according to what the latest dynamics reveal. The explanation that has been given by the health authorities are the explanations. Basically, one, we don't have the capacity to keep all of this in our country. And two, we've also got some donations of vaccines in the past. But what does that say for accountability? And like some would say, because the IMF is, we're looking at, or we're eyeing an IMF program, and so we have to come forth with some of this data. If not for that, would we be seeing some of this? What does that say about accountability, Lawyer Paintel?
It goes beyond even that. It goes back to procurement. There are clear rules and regulations concerning procurement. I mean, when you receive approval to other things, there must be justification for the procurement process, because it's public funds that are used. We've got a law in this country dealing with public procurement as a whole, even if it is sole sourcing. I believe a lot of these things, procurement, were done by sole sourcing. But nonetheless, you must justify the quantity, the quality, time of delivery, all of that. So what it means for our accountability is that somebody who's in charge, high officials who are in charge of our public procurement, did not take into consideration the right things that ought to have gone in. It's a form of negligence. And negligence that borders on incompetence. And when the two are mixed, it shows that the loss, whatever losses that Ghanaians lose as a result of a combination of the negligence and incompetence, ought to be disallowed and surcharged to the officials who have run that loss for this country. Unless, of course, the report, I noticed that it is silent about how those funds are going to be recouped. You can make a lot of common sense that if I decided to purchase so much from you and I didn't purchase, somebody must tell us where the funds are. That is to say, for the difference that have not been supplied. If the report included the fact of efforts that have been made to retrieve what have not been, so I'm talking about the price for those things that have not been supplied, that it makes a lot of sense to all of us. But when we've got this kind of reports, which somehow are wishy-washy on where the remaining funds are and when we are going to get it and why we haven't had it after all these years, then, you know, it produces a smoke powder, if I may put it that way, in which people are waiting, leaving all of us confused. And it all goes back, or it wades into the whole issue of, I mean, let me put it bluntly, I mean, the whole issue of, I mean, impunity that's associated with the way we do things in this country, where in spite of evidence, somebody goes scot-free and encourages another to do it the same thing the next time. This is the problem we have. Listen, every time that I look at these things and how predictable, I mean, let's put it that way, how predictable these things are, then it makes me wonder whether we care about it. I mean, we care about even the things that we talk about, and how people will always go away with these things. Because if for all these number of years, we've got, an Auditor General who, in spite of these reports, at the end of the day, want Ghanaians to believe that, oh, unfortunately, these funds are gone, so let's look at the next thing. I'm telling you, mark me on this show program. Next year, if I'm alive, mark me on this program. The report we'll have next year will be worse than what we are seeing. And by next year, there will be no evidence that anything has been collected for the public purse. And that shows you how we kill ourselves every day in this country. And instead, I need to make even this other point. You know, when my colleague will speak, I'm talking about Dr. Appiah, you know, he's talking about public structure, the structure of our institution, whatever. Listen to me. Currently in the U.S., the Attorney General was appointed by the president. And nonetheless, he has set up a special counsel to investigate the president. So it goes back to reinforce the point I'm making, which is that it takes individuals with balls to...
Right, individuals with that, you know, temerity to be able to tackle the situation. Our apologies there for the use of that word. But just to wrap the conversation, gentlemen, just to wrap with your final words, I'd like you to talk about another aspect of the Auditor General's report, which has to do with 26 ambulances valued at $4 million, which are yet to arrive. I thought this issue of ambulances ordered yet to arrive would be a thing of the past. But these ones are related to COVID-19. And Ghana is said to yet to receive these. The report covering the period March 2020 to June 2022 revealed that the Ministry of Health signed a contract on December 15, 2021 for the supply of Toyota Hayes Deluxe ambulances. Out of the total cost of $4.049 million, the document said $607,419 was paid for the vehicles to be delivered by January 15, 2022, but they remained undelivered. Now, management, per the report, indicated that upon technical inspection by the World Bank, additional specifications were recommended, and the contract had therefore been extended to March 2023. What do you make of this situation? And there's also, I just want you to chip in on the debt exchange program, the position of the Ghana Association of Bankers, and what your thinking is on how the debt exchange is being brought to bear. Just briefly on these two matters, and it's a wrap. I'll start with you, Dr. Appiah.
Right. So with regards to the ambulances, our ties to the huge $81 million of COVID vaccines that have not yet been supplied. So here we have ambulances that have been ordered with some specifications. And then at the end of the day, the specifications have been found or were found by the World Bank not to be appropriate. And so based on recommendations, now ambulances that were supposed to be supplied within 1 month, now it has been extended to more than 1 year. Now my question is, where was the World Bank at the end of the day when after 19th November 2021, after the country had paid over $40 million or $49 million, and we had gotten only $38 million worth of COVID vaccines, and the rest have not been delivered. And yet, on 17th December, the World Bank continued to make direct payment of $3.8 million. On 21st December, they made direct payment of $5.5 million. 6th June, they made direct payment of $1.4 million. 15th June of 2022, they paid $59 million, all at a time when the COVID vaccines had not been delivered, or only $30 million have been delivered. And so you ask yourself, the same World Bank that went to now review the technical specifications for the ambulances, now didn't they now bring their technical eyes at the end of the day to look at the fact that over $100 million have been paid, and yet vaccines have not been delivered.
So sometimes it's about the watchdog role of some of these Bretton Woods institutions. It's a complaint others have made in the past, but then others will also tell you about sovereignty. And yes, you've given me money, but I must manage it according to my needs and the context. What do you think, briefly?
Yeah, so exactly that's the point that I'm raising. Of course, the IMF, World Bank cannot see us for that Christmas. They are here to make profits from us. So if something is not working, and because when they release money, of course, we have to pay interest on it. So it is time that we also carefully review the structural arrangements governing our contractual relationships with our donor partners, because they may be complicit in this kind of things. That when things are not working, they still release money for payment of things that are not working, because the government can get some cheap money from somewhere and we can pay some contractors. Somebody may get a percentage cut and all that. And so it goes on. It goes on. It is time that we have to review our contractual relations with also our donors.
Do you have any comment on the debt exchange, or can we move on? Dr. Appiah, do you have
I think that as the bondholders are negotiating with government, I think they have to raise these matters at the end of the day and put their conditionalities on the table as a basis for entering into agreements with the government, at least if not for anything, for the right thing to be done, for surcharges to be issued on the misapplication of bonds that they have paid for which today they are suffering.
Okay.
I end my submission. Thank you very much.
Dr. Daniel Appiah, we're grateful that you took the time to join us this morning. He is a public administration expert at the University of Ghana Business School. Kweku Painso, in a minute, you have the final word.
Yeah, regarding the reasons that they've given us, with regard to these ambulances, sometimes I get embarrassed with the reasons that are given. It's like they are playing with our intelligence. It's like we are all better off even if they did not tell us the reasons that they claim are responsible for the kind of woes that they visit on us. You know, like some schools said they had a master who used to say, "You think me and my wife are small boys?" You know, they play with our intelligence. How can you tell us that you ordered an ambulance and at the time that you have paid for it, you didn't even know the specifications or the specifications? It goes back to procurement, public procurement. The funds are public funds. Ghanaians, the money of Ghanaians. You know, sometimes it's I get embarrassed, genuinely embarrassed. And they will tell us these things because, like I said, everything that we do in your program becomes hot air. Meaning there are no implications, there are no consequences. Whatever we say, nobody gives a damn. And like, just make your noise. We also do what we have to do. That is the way I see the way we run our country and the way we use our public funds. And once it gets used and it gets blown, that's the end of it. And now we don't even know if it is a match. You and this organization monitor to see whether in March the ambulance would eventually arrive.
Right.
You write to them, get information, and give us as Ghanaians. Regarding these bonds and whatever, I'm a little embarrassed because I'm looking at the implications for us as a country. If your government can invite you to place funds with it, and the same government now comes around in the manner that they have done, the real problem I have is the economic implications of this. Whether at any time in this country, you can get the public, can get Ghanaians to trust government sufficiently to make this kind of investment. That is my worry. As to what's going on between them, let's hope that things turn out well. That's my only hope. That's the only thing I can say.
Well,
yes.
We'll hope against hope. Kweku Pencil is a lawyer. He joined us for that conversation as well. Thank you so much, sir, and do have the best of the day.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Well,
thank you so much for staying here on the AM show. I'm Bernice Lansah, and you cannot help but wonder if these children do not have basic furniture, what more can they get to get a meaningful education? This morning, we're going to have a conversation about that and the general contribution to the development of the country. I'll be joined by the president of the Ghana National Association of Teachers, Reverend Isaac Owusu, and also Joyce Lanyon, who is an educationist and country director of International Child Development Program. Let me start with you, Rev. Thank you so much for joining the program. We've heard from some of these teachers who appear to be very overwhelmed by the situation at hand, and they wish they could have done more if they could get the basic things. In fact, we have reported of teachers who go out of their way to be innovative, to try and create the right environment for children to learn. Since this government took over, we know that a lot of investment has been made in the education sector, but for senior high school, because of government's free SHS policy. What would you say has been the contribution of this government towards basic education, and if that is satisfactory enough so far? Hello, Rev. Well, we'll try and work the lines to Rev. It appears there's a challenge there. So let me come to you, Joyce. Same question. I hope you got it. What would you say government's contribution to basic education has been, and whether so far that is satisfactory?
Much, and I want to thank Joy FM for this opportunity to speak about issues concerning education in this country. In fact, the clip made me very, very sad, because if you talk about education and the foundational stage, undoubtedly, Ghana has made great strides in improving the quality of education at all levels. We have achieved gender parity, and we are doing quite well. In spite of all this, there are serious challenges with our foundational stage gains. So if you talk about children from ages to 17, which is from the KG class 1 level to the JHS level, we have challenges. Clearly, the clip is giving us the information as to how we are faring. How can children of kindergarten be writing on the floor, sleeping and writing, not considering their physical posture in terms of sitting upright to write? Government has done very well in certain areas, but I think our foundational stage, which is the kindergarten to P1, should be looked at again. Budget allocations should be increased from 12% to 23%. And this is our job as civil society, to come and bring these messages to government to appreciate the importance of the early stage learning. If we do not build a strong foundation, how are we going to increase in the years ahead when children are lacking basic resources? Budgetary allocation at that level is so small. It's sad. It's not happening in Pandai alone. It's happening in a lot of places, a lot of communities, a lot of schools, where teachers are handicapped to perform their basic duty. Education is a right. I mean, it's clear it's a right. And fulfilling this right, it behoves on us to take bold action in areas that would ensure the vision statement that is designed or written on the SDGs. That is ensuring inclusive, safe, and healthy learning environments, empowering teachers, harnessing issues around digital revolution for the benefit of the public education system, and also invest more equitably and efficiently. You are talking about teaching and learning materials. You are talking about teacher capacity. You are talking about the learning environment. It's rather unfortunate that we are facing this situation after how many years of independence?
Let me bring. I'll come back to you for more on this, but let me bring in Reverend Isaac Owusu now. He is president of the Ghana National Association of Teachers. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. I am wondering really if this is not just a case of these people are coming from deprived communities anyway, most of them. And so, well, what's the point? They're already impoverished. Why should we kill ourselves to give them what we give people in urban centers like Accra and Kumasi? Because if that is not the case, why are we denying these children the dignity of chairs? These are chairs they need to sit on to study. What do you think the problem is? Why are we denying them this dignity as a people?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. Please, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yes. We are where we are today because the successive government that has taken power to governing the affairs of this state has decided to overlook the principles stated in the 1992 Constitution under Article 38. Education in this country under Article 25 is one of the fundamental human rights. It is not just a privilege, but it's the right of every citizen of this country to have access to quality education. And that is why when you go to Article 38, it clearly states that the state can make everything possible to make facilities available to all the levels of education in this country. And it is very sad, my dear, to see Ghanaian children lying on the floor, sitting on the floor. And in any case, this thing didn't happen just yesterday. Since 1992, that we decided to practice democracy, we all agreed to abide the rules and regulations that we have enacted to govern ourselves. Now, when you go to this particular school, it is located within a district. Mm-hmm. The district has a district assembly headed by either the DC or the MP, who is the chairperson for either job, that is District Education Oversight Committee, or Municipal Education Oversight Committee. And if you look at the Local Government Act, it is stated clearly that even children that parents do not have money to cater for their children's education, it is the duty of the assembly through the social welfare to cater for such children. And this thing is not happening only in the northeast part of this country. In every region, you have such situation in every region, my sister. And when you look at this particular year, the budget that was given to the Ministry of Education, you could see clearly that the budget was cut. And generally, the cut-off was affected the basic school. I think this government has done has done well, but the concentration and attention, to me, you look at it is at the secondary level. But you cannot build a story building when the foundation of that story building is not good. I believe we need to take critical look of the basic school. It is not good at all.
So, Rev, I'm grateful that you brought in the perspective of the local assembly because they represent government at that level. There is the reason why we have decentralized our structure and our system. So, as NAT, because obviously your teachers are affected by the phenomenon. They have to go to class. Some of them, like I mentioned earlier, are innovative. They try to find solutions for their students and make it more engaging for them to help them, enjoy the learning process so it doesn't become burdensome. But as NAT, what have you done over the years, or what have you tried to do to draw the attention of the local assembly and even government as a whole to this rather disturbing problem?
Well, I think since 1931 that NAT came to be. Every year, in our quest to draw whichever government is in power attention to the fact that there are a lot of deficits in terms of infrastructure and furniture. Anytime we celebrate World Teachers Day, whichever region that holds the national one, not go into that region, identify a school in a deprived area, and provide furniture, and also put up some sort of summer hut to cater for children that are in a collapsed building. And we've been doing this since 1931. Just last year, when in other regions, we did the same. And sometimes we even have to provide life jackets to an entire community that our teachers fly their work in that community, that they have to cross some stream or river. So it is something that we've been doing consistently every year, just to draw the employer or the government attention that, look, you cannot get quality education when the children do not have access to furniture. You cannot have access to quality education when the children do not have textbooks. You cannot have quality education when the children are living in a debt-trapped building. Look, in Central Region, about 4 years ago, a public school that was even a mission school, Methodist KG school, in Esikuma Brafa, the children were playing during break, and the entire building collapsed on these children, and 6 of them died. 6 of them died.
So, Rev, I mean, we focus on the children a lot, but let me just allow you to share with us how this also affects the teachers, because I don't even see a chair for a teacher there. Talk of a cupboard for you to keep the books and keep yourself organized. What do teachers go through, and how does it make you feel?
In fact, our teachers who are set to go to state communities to work, the fact is that we really feel for them. Because you go to that particular place, you see, teachers are not even willing to go there. Because apart from the children and the teachers not having chairs and tables to sit on, even accommodation for the teachers to lay their head, there is no accommodation for the teachers. Meanwhile, the government will not even give the teacher rent allowance to even go and look for accommodation of his or her choice. The government is supposed to even motivate these teachers in our collective agreement that those who have accepted to go into these deprived and hard-to-reach areas, at least 20% of their gross salary should be given to them since 2009 to date. That allowance has never and ever gotten to the teachers. So all that we do as a union is to encourage the members who have accepted to be in those localities. And anytime there are opportunities that we have to help the teachers, these are the teachers that we fall on first before we look at those who are in the urban areas. So I think it is a very difficult situation our members find themselves in.
back to you, Joyce. And so, how can we be creative about solving this problem? I know we are a very benevolent society, and people occasionally will donate items, will donate desks to schools, but it doesn't cover or deal with the problem in its entirety. Looking at the whole structure in terms of equitable distribution across the country, to all parts of the country, no matter what type of community it is or the status of the people who live in it, how can we ensure that we are balancing it? At least the basics are shared across the board.
And the situation is very, very gloomy. And I want to bring to light a bit of hope that all is not lost, and we can still commit ourselves to ensuring that our educational structure is very equitable, inclusive, with all the necessary resources that the teachers need. I want to thank UNESCO for the opportunity to support International Child Development Program, the civil society platform on SDG 4 for this advocacy that we are doing. And on this International Day of Education, we want to commit in informing the government or doing this advocacy that we need to invest in the people and prioritize education. We need to make sure that we are leaving no one behind, that whatever we are doing in this post-pandemic era is equitable and inclusive. Teachers will have to be supported with capacities that they need to do their work. All the materials needed. It's very sad to see children lying on the floor. Unbelievable. So the government can still go ahead, even in this post-pandemic era, to provide what it needs for us to achieve our sustainable development goal, which is just around the corner. 2030 is where we are going to give an account of an educational system. And if teachers are not even ready to go to support schools and get this foundation that we need, this learning that we need for national development, we are at a loss.
But Joyce, how do these teachers go to these places? I mean, like I said, some of them have really tried, but talk about teacher salary, that's a conversation for another day. So even if they want to dip their hands into their own pockets to try and solve some of the problems, it's a challenge. So how do they go when the basic things they need to execute their mandate is not provided?
And that is why they don't even go. That is why they don't even go. Because can you imagine teachers going to the classrooms? The structures are not even appropriate for teaching and learning to take place. The children are all over the place. Parents who cannot afford are not being supported with the little leap programs that will help empower them. The education service is the solutions because there are no resources for them to go and monitor and make sure teachers are doing the right things. The whole system is sort of broken. And that's why we within the civil society will encourage the Ghana Education Service to look at the structures, the teachers, how they can go, the resources that they need, the teaching and learning materials, the classroom environment that will be conducive enough for them to do their work. Otherwise, my sister, if you are posted to a community in Pandai, a fresh teacher who's come out of training and is poised to do the work, and you are confronted with this atmosphere, this environment, lack of the needed resources to do your work, indeed, I don't think you'll be motivated enough to go, or even to stay within the sector. You would rather look elsewhere for other opportunities rather than staying within the education service. There is this package that teachers who are ready to go to rural communities are given a certain percentage as motivation. These are not done for teachers who are ready to go. So they go, and with all this myriad of challenges, they just want to quit the system. We are pleading with government to take a good look at budgets, allocations within the education sector. Like my brother said, the budget was reduced. And how can we make progress with this myriad of challenges? The budget needs to be looked at once again. Girls' education during the pandemic, the number of girls that fell victim to teenage pregnancy is just overwhelming. How do we get these girls back? How will we provide the necessary resources, the capacity for the teachers to be able to work with these girls to get them back to school? We need to look at the system carefully, and strategies needed to uplift the image of the teaching profession in Ghana. It's what we have to actually look at. Otherwise, I think we are going nowhere.
Now, to our politicians, we have seen over the years that when you're committed to doing something, you do it. In the clip that we played, Jojo Kobna's feature, before we started the conversation, you heard Vice President, then he was running mate to President Akufo-Addo. In 2016, he visited some of these schools just before the elections, and the pictures were all over the place. And he made a commitment to dealing with this problem. We are in the third year of the second term of this government, and you would have thought that something significant, something dramatic and phenomenal would have been done to solve this problem, but it still persists, unfortunately so. To our politicians, if you commit to solving this problem, you will solve it. You are capable. There is money, we know. It's just the lack of commitment. Now, Rev, there appears to be a widening gap. And so, as the good schools, the well-established schools, are trying everything to improve and get better, you have schools like the one that was shown in our feature that appear to be still at zero, no improvement whatsoever. While we wait for government to do something, what would you say about philanthropy, which we used to see a lot previously, and how it can impact or help deal with the problem while we wait for government to make that big move, which we hope will be soon? Hello, Rev?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, I think we can only appeal to them to continue to do the good things they are doing for those of us who find ourselves in the rural areas. But you see, what we can do to solve this problem is to formulate a policy that all those in charge of education, all those who are working, who are public sector working, they have to send their children in these public schools. But Bernice, if you are a DC, you are a judge, you are a medical practitioner, a teacher, a lawyer, and at the basic level, you do not send your children to that school. If let's say in a community, the chief inspector's child is in that public school, the reverend minister's child is in that public school, and there is no furniture, quickly these people will rally together and make provision for their children. But those who are managing education...
So how will we do this? Would we have to force them by legislation, legally, you think?
Exactly, because in elsewhere, if you are a public sector worker, your children cannot go to private school. Because if I'm a Minister of Education, I'm a PRO for GES or the Minister of Education, and my ward is in private school. And I hear that the people are giving 1 cedi a day for feeding. How will it affect me? But if my child is there, and I hear that the children are being given 1 cedi, or they don't have furniture, they don't have textbook, all come together. Because you cannot formulate policy for citizens of this country, and you don't believe in the policy you yourself have formulated. That is look at the secondary school level. Why is it that the same people who don't trust in the basic school, public basic school, when they get to the secondary school, all of us prefer our children to be in public secondary school? Why are we not sending our children to private secondary school? Because the minister's charge is in front of him. The DC charge is in front of him. Whatever they need from the parents, the minister will quickly go and provide. Why can't we say same when we can see that the central regional minister, her daughter or her son is in maybe Mori Basic School? So that should be the way forward. For other than that, we'll always be lamenting. All those who come to formulate policy, they don't believe in the public basic school system. They don't believe in it. And the evidence is there clearly.
Rav, I'll come back to you for your concluding thoughts. Let me just say that we've been joined by Sefam Lord Mensah, who is an educationist, for her take on this conversation. Good morning to you, and thank you for joining the program.
Good morning, Bernice.
Great. So we've been having a conversation about quality education, provision of basic things like furniture. My colleague Jojo Kobna has produced 2 editions of his series, Ghana's Schools of Shame, and it's a sad sight. It's you just cannot understand how this happens in 21st century in a country like Ghana, which is a focal point for a lot of people when they want to talk about Africa and West Africa. But Sefam, we clearly have a problem with quality, right? It's as though we are excited about the numbers. So we have these number of schools, but we don't have chairs, we don't have books, we don't have desks. We have these number of children benefiting from free senior high school, yet we're struggling to feed them. Some of them are being asked to bring papers to print their mock examination questions. Is our problem where our focus is? Are we so fixated on numbers, quantity, instead of quality?
So in 2018, there was a report by World Bank where they indicated that if nothing is done, 56% of our students would have, in terms of 18 years to come, will have issues with that in terms of our human capital index. And this is as a result of the kind of education that we deliver or we give to our learners, as in the kind of education that Ghana delivers, according to the report, is poor. And so it's not of quality. And you and I think I have mentioned it in one of the platforms that when it comes to the educational sphere, quality means different things to different people. But if you are talking about quality fit for purpose, then quality, one of my professors will say that quality changes from input, process, output. So if it's input, process, output, I would like to put it in this manner that then we are talking about the deliberate or the kind of facilitators that we use to teach our learners, the kind of curriculum that we engage in, the facilities that the students are used or we use for these students, and how the processes that we engage for these quality issues to be effective. So if we are talking about having 7,000 of our students in a certain region and district not having access to desks, I would also like to add that we have 1 million plus of our learners not in school. Yeah. So if we want to talk about quality, meaning that we are having issues within these areas. I was happy when Mr. Owusu and Madam Joyce mentioned that the budgetary allocation for education is woefully inadequate. Yes, when you go through the budget, that is the 2023, we have 12%. But there's a benchmark allocation of government budget that should be between 15 to 20. So when you even look at that, it means that we are even lacking behind. 12 to 20 is a step. So when you compare it to 2022, something has been added, but we are still not making that impact. We are still not making that effort. When this year, 2023, International Day for Education, it says what? To invest in people, you have to prioritize education. So if you are prioritizing education through investment, then efforts must be made in such a way that we put our money where our mouth is. So meaning that funding of education is a priority. We cannot commit 12% of our expenditure of our money to education, whereas we need more than 15 to 20. You remember that somewhere in 2021, our president traveled to the UK, and he made a commitment that for a period of 5 years, that is 2021 to 2025, he's going to increase that budgetary allocation to 23%. So I don't know whether it is going to be done on incremental basis, because as we are speaking now, we are in 2023. Yes, the budget is 12%. Nothing close to the GDP of maybe 4 to 6%. We are not even close. Then how are we going to take care of these children that are writing, squatting, or lying on the floor, for better want of the word, excuse me for the language I am coming to use, as if they are animals on the floor? Then I'm sorry. And yes, they are going to be competing with other people in other regions for the same basic education exams. Where is the fairness? So we need to go back to the drawing board and put our money where our mouth is, as in investing in education. How can we be innovative enough, equitable enough, and efficient enough to put the money where we want that kind of result? Because if you don't do this, then I'm sorry. The environment that the student learns is important. The caliber of teachers that the student interact with or nurture the student is also important. And what we do is we just have to be practical and conscious about where we invest.
Safam, is it a case of, or let me put it this way, are we deceiving ourselves if we think that once they are in a certain setup and receiving some form of education, they will be fine? Is this, bad news waiting to happen in the future? Because you just referenced that 2018 report about the Human Capital Index. Are we sleeping on our job? Do we get it? Do our leaders get it? That, look, yes, you have free SHS, you have this, you have that, you have that. But if you miss out on the quality bit, you are just deceiving yourself. Do you think that our leaders get it?
Our leaders get it very much. But let me make this statement. You will notice that when it comes to policy implementation, it's a different thing altogether. When the resources are not mobilized to implement the policy, then we will be found wanting. Yes, STEM education is good, absolutely excellent. However, if you're having issues with foundational learning, and you notice that over 50-something% of our learners cannot read, and 60% of our learners cannot do simple, basic mathematics, these foundational skills are the core for which we are going to build upon for other learning benefits. So if you're having issues in this environment and we cannot sort it out, yet jump and go and contribute or invest in other areas, then I am thinking that we are more interested in having political gains than making policy gains. It has to be policy gain than political gains. Because if you want to have policy gains, that policy gain would travel beyond political regimes. It can even take 7, 8, 10, 20 years to come. But if we are committed to these policies, it can travel beyond other government regimes, so that when these things are there, another government comes, that government will continue and know that this is the way forward. We cannot give meager amounts to education and expect education to flourish. If you want our educational system to be in a manner that we want it to compete with a global trend, then something must be done. Then we have to go back to the drawing board. How are we investing in education? It says to invest in people, we have to prioritize education. How do we prioritize education if you're not putting money into education? these things that we are talking about, to sustain free HSS is about education. To sustain STEM education that we are projecting now is about education. To sustain every other thing, to train the teacher, the facilities involved, to give that teacher the needed environment, the conducive environment for him or her to deliver is about money. So where are we putting that money? Must we go and implement new projects, or can we reinforce, do something good and refurbish, add value to the existing ones? If we have to do this, then it means that we have to be committed and we have to remove party politics, party biases, and concentrate on policies that can travel beyond political regimes and look for Ghana, not for ourselves.
Right. I like the bit on policy gains and not political gains. We're wrapping up the conversation now. Let me start with you, Joyce. I strongly believe that we can solve this problem if we want to. I don't think that this is a hard to solve problem. Like, you know, illegal mining, which involves adults who have made up their minds that they will be deviant and do what they've been asked not to do. These are children who just need a chair to sit on. In wrapping up the conversation, how soon do you think we can solve this problem, and what will your wish and your dream be? Hello, Joyce.
Yeah, thank you. And my wish and my dream will be what my colleague just said, to prioritize our education sector and put our monies where our mouth is. The most important component for me is the early grade level, where the data is clear about our learning outcomes at P1 when we do the assessment. So the early grade level and all its accompaniments, the environment, the teaching and learning strategies, the resources needed for children to learn, to build the foundation for other levels to pick up and then move with it is very important. So if we are prioritizing or investing in people and prioritizing education, we must look at education right from the foundation stage and build it over the years, continuum of what previous governments have done. Then we can reap the results at the end.
Joyce, so would you say, sorry to interject, Joyce. So would you say that we missed it? Should that have come before free senior high school? Would you say we put the cart before the horse?
I think the evidence is there for everybody to see that, yes, the cart is actually before the horse. When we have children at the early grade, P1, P2, lying on the floor and doing all manner of things that does not inure to the benefits of our educational outcomes that we keep on talking about. But we are interested in a component that, for some reason, is the priority, and we are not receiving what we need at that basic that will lead us to that level. Then we have put the cart before the horse. Reading is key to everything we are doing. Children cannot read based on the EGRA results that we are receiving. It's worrying. So we need to go back and put the necessary resources needed to build the blocks up to the level that we want, the senior high school. Otherwise, we are still having challenges. The learning environment at that stage should be improved. The budget allocation should be increased 12%, which is way beyond the benchmark.
Right, Joyce.
Way below.
Thank you so much.
If you ask me, this is it.
Thank you so much. Let me come to you, Reverend Isaac Owusu, President of NAT. We know the teachers. We've heard from you. We've highlighted the concerns. How soon do you think we can solve the problem, and what should we do in doing that quickly?
Yes, I think it is long overdue. It is something that we can solve. And we are challenging all the duty bearers, most especially the state. to perform its function as enshrined under Article 38, to make sure that they make facilities available to these kids that we are teaching. And also encourage the teachers who find themselves in those communities to help our young ones. You see, the political gain outweighs the national interest. That is why the basic schools are suffering. When an MP wants to distribute furniture, this MP will not look at where the school that needs furniture. The MP will rather go to a school that he or she feels that this place, this community, I can get more votes. Meanwhile, that school will already be having furniture. So we are pleading that, let's look, nobody can make this country better for us. It is we, the citizens, that can make the country better for ourselves. So the FMDAs, in their composite budget, anytime they prepare budget at the assembly, they factor in education. And you go there, they would never support this schools within their jurisdiction. So we cannot rely on philanthropists always. We have a duty. That is why we are paying tax in the country. So it is my wish that at least next year we will assess the situation and at least see that at least we've done 20% better than this year.
Thank you so much for your time this morning, Reverend Isaac Owusu. Sefam Lord Mensa, you have the last word. We were just showing the graphics there, and you can tell that the disparity is telling. It appears that in the northern part of the country, there is a lot of work that needs to be done. And obviously, some have tried to link that with the level of poverty in that part of the country and all that. But that's why there is a government, and the government must make a decision on how to even bridge the gap, even when it comes to the issue of poverty. So how do you think we can do that, especially in dealing with the situation that the kids find themselves in? Quickly, please, in a minute. Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. I caught a statement our president made. He says poverty shall not be an excuse for any Ghanaian child to reach their full potential. So it doesn't matter whether they are in a deprived or marginalized area. Education is a right. And under no circumstances should others have the best of it and others should be at a disadvantage. So moving forward, you notice that in 2022, September thereof, Ghana participated in Transforming Education Summit. The prime purpose of reimaging education in line with the SDG 4, i.e. the inclusive education. So Ghana made a commitment statement to provide, to make sure that all these things that we need to project or promote our education is important. And considering what is happening in Afghanistan in terms of girl child education, I would like to say this. It is becoming more of a privilege for us, those of us in countries where the girl child can have access to education. We must do everything to protect that access. We must do everything to retain the girl child in school for her to be able to make positive impacts to others. Nobody should thwart this agenda in terms of policies should not make girl childs not stay in school. You did something short that I think you are going to be showing on the 26th of January about classroom mothers. And some of these children is as a result of is it poverty or certain things. Yeah, there's a policy all right for them to go back to the classroom. Yet, what are we doing as education providers, communities, stakeholders to ensure that our girl child stays in school, get the best out of the system and come up and impact? We cannot overemphasize the gains of education. When you educate the woman, as we all know, you are educating the nation. So let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's commit to educational gains. To invest in people, we have to prioritize education, make sure that the needed resources that we need to project education in a manner that it will benefit everybody, we should all be speaking the same language. The advocacy should continue. It shouldn't be me alone, but it should be all of us on board.
Thank you so much for your time. Sefam Lord Mensah is an educationist. Earlier you heard Reverend Isaac Owusu, who is the president of the Ghana National Association of Teachers, and Joyce Lanyo, an educationist and country director of International Child Development Program. Hi there, thank you so much for staying on the AM show with us. It's now time to get interactive with you. The number to call 0302-211-691, 0302-211-691, and we'll be glad. Oh, Benjamin.
I love the way you worked with it. You got it today. Put it there.
I got it yesterday.
No,
you should go back and listen.
You messed it up.
You should go back and listen. No, you should go back and listen.
Well, that's the number to call, definitely. On a more serious note, get interactive with us. That conversation you just had on education just got all of us in the back room talking. So we can lose all these sums of money on the back of the latest Auditor General's report and all of that. And we have children sitting in these dilapidated structures, rickety structures, study. How can you even study in such an environment?
So you know, the issue about balance, the issue about equity. So there are schools that have desks already, but we seem to be giving them more and leaving these ones who have nothing at all to still, you know, be at the stage that they are in. So it just makes you wonder, is it the local assemblies that are not making a case enough? Because, you know, the eyes of government, as in the central government, cannot be everywhere. And that is why there are reps. So you have an MP, you have local, you have an MC, you have a DC, all these people, there's a chain. And nobody.
What are they doing?
Nobody. Well, we have a first caller from Kumasi. Hello, good morning to you.
Hello, good morning, Bernice.
Hi, please, can you speak up a bit?
Hello, good morning, Bernice and Benjamin.
Good morning. Please, let's hear your thoughts.
I would briefly share a thought on the documentary, the schools thing. Honestly, I was just soaked in tears, and I believe we all owe it a duty. Your guys on the field are doing so well, and I think, I mean, they may not be given an award, but God's blessings will be on them for bringing this information to bear. And JoyNews, we thank you for all the good work that you are doing, forming us and letting our leaders know their role and the responsibility that is ahead of them. Come to think of it, why are we as a nation, why are we not prioritizing on these key little things? How is it so difficult for us to provide these basic, I mean, they are school desks, Bernice, school desks. They are not asking for laptops. They are not asking for flat screen. All they need is school desks. And you look at the situation that some of the teachers, they find themselves in, and you begin to wonder, are these communities really in Ghana? Thank you so much, Joy, for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, too, for calling us.
And you see, in the midst of this, we say we're going to be giving, the Vice President says we're going to give out laptops to others, and you can't even do these basics. These basic ones, you are not doing them. You want to give some others laptops. Our prioritization in this country is so warped. It just makes you wonder sometimes how we think.
Exactly. And the foundation is important, like Joy said when I was talking to her, Benjamin, because everything is at the foundation. Everything. Look, you have people who are passionate, who want to pursue stuff. They go to universities and they are struggling because basic comprehension is a problem.
Yesterday.
They're reading stuff, they're reading, but to comprehend is a problem.
A friend of mine who lectures at the University of Ghana says these SHS students come. Level 100. You have to take them straight to theory. They now have to stop because they are not grasping anything. They have to teach them the basics of English to get them to understand before they take them to theory.
Another caller from Kumasi. Hello, Emmanuel. Let's hear you.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. From what I've seen today, I'm very sad about it. In fact, the politicians are disappointed us to the extent that if you look at the way we are just spending our money, using our money, and the children are lying on the floor and right, they are very, very greedy. Politicians are very greedy. You look at NATO and 5%. You have disappointed Ghana. You are from the northern region. Look at it. Students lie on the floor writing, and you are just spending money on cathedral, unnecessary spending. They are too wicked. They are too wicked. Thank you.
Thank you to Emmanuel. I mean, Benjamin, look, when you think about children in this country, you wonder, for many of them, apart from those who come from privileged homes, if there is anything enjoyable about their childhood. Yeah. So these children, I'm sure, will go to the farm after school. That is hard work. Okay, I'm not saying children should not learn how to work. I mean, even in you know,
there are child labor regulations.
Yeah, like gardening, you
yeah.
teach it. But these children are doing work meant for adults. And then when they come to school where, like you see their children, they can play with colors.
You think they'll get some respite. So
they're still being
hassle at home, hassle in school.
Carry your chair to school.
I've seen some carrying desks, like these ones were desks, carrying them for kilometers just to get to school.
Anthony is our last caller from Accra Newtown. Hello, Anthony. Let's hear you, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, thank you for your good work done. You are enlightening us mostly of what is going on in the country. And had it been like this for a long, long time, we could have reached the diaspora. We can go beyond the level that we are today. And I'm telling you, the Ghana, that it is disgrace for us to be over 60 years independent and experiencing all these things, which is shame to us. And I am one of the lowest learned man in Ghana. But I want to make it clear that attitude of this will not end us anywhere. And I said it one again, if democracy will bring us so low to this point, then it is disgrace. And I want to ask one thing. What I want to ask is that, do those who force us into democracy, are they not seeing this as abuse? Even the children are sitting now who has no classroom, whereas a government was in power, built a lot of schools for children to occupy and learn.
Right, Anthony.
My good people of Ghana, let us see the right and point the right.
Okay.
And the wrong must be pointed out wrong.
Okay. Thank you so much, Anthony. Unfortunately, that's all time will allow us, but we appreciate your comment and thank you for joining the program. So, Benjamin, there it is. Like I said, we can do it. If we want to do it, we can do it. I mean, this is not a launch into space.
Part of the problem. So, one, we focus on too many things, and two, I don't understand why some of our leaders can cash out, take a salary at the end of the month, looking at what they do. Honestly, I don't.
Well, thank you so much for joining today's program. But before we go, we need to remind you that the GRA wants you to know, especially if you are applying for a tax clearance certificate, that you have to do it online or download the Ghana Taxpayers app on Google Play Store or the App Store. Applicants who visit the taxpayer service centers will be assisted by officers of the authority to apply. Applicants are also required to indicate the taxpayer identification number, that's the TIN of the institution or organization requesting the certificate, so that they can receive a copy. Applicants should take note and be guided accordingly. You can contact the GRA's toll-free 0800 900 110 or via these WhatsApp numbers 055 299 0000 or 0200631664, or you can send an email for further enquiries. Also, you need to know that if you are registered for value-added tax, that's VAT, that the Domestic Tax Revenue Division of the GRA has commenced the implementation of an electronic invoicing system of VAT, referred to as EVAT. It involves integrating the invoicing systems of VAT-registered taxpayers to the Commissioner General's invoicing system. Taxpayers who do not have an invoicing system will be required to issue invoices using GRA's certified invoicing system at no cost. VAT-registered taxpayers are to note that refusal to integrate their invoicing systems with the Commissioner General's system attracts sanctions. Kindly contact the GRA once again, toll-free 0800 900 110 or via these WhatsApp numbers 055 299 000 or 020063 1664.
And that's how we sew it up this morning on the AM show. It has been exciting, though heart-wrenching at a point. I still can't get over. I've seen so many things, pupils wading through water to get to school, but it's a scar on our conscience. And really, as a people, as leaders and followers, we must do something about it. Bernice, it's been good.
It's been good. It's been a good morning. Thank you so
today.
much for joining us. God willing, we are back again tomorrow with another exciting show for you. One that puts you at the heart of what we discuss here. Do stay. News Desk is up next.